Hi, everybody. It's Susan, and I'm back to talk about Uranus retrograding back into Taurus and also Jupiter as it's stationed retrograde just 2 days ago. So I would have wanted to do this a few days ago. I was in London for 10 days for a family constellations workshop, which was fantastic, except that I was staying in a B&B which had a mold and mildew issue, and I had a really bad reaction to that. So I've been pretty much under the weather for the last pretty much 2 weeks. And it also meant that for many, many days I was coughing and not really able to produce much in terms of recordings. So bear with me. I'm going to pause the recording if necessary, and hopefully we'll get through this together. So we had Uranus moving back into Taurus on the 7th of November. And we had Mercury stationing retrograde on the 9th of November. And then on the 11th of November, we had Jupiter stationing retrograde in Cancer. So I already did a really complete video on the Mercury retrograde station or cycle, the whole cycle of Mercury retrograde in November, December. So I'm going to send you to listen to that one. That was the last one I did before disappearing for a while. So I won't really speak to the Mercury retrograde cycle, but just to keep it in mind that it happened around the same time, and Mercury is ruled by Mercury in Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, which is now retrograde as well. So there's an interesting dynamic there because now Mercury itself retrograde is being ruled by a retrograde outer planet. So Jupiter will be retrograde for 4 months, basically from the 11th of November until the 11th of March. I'll talk about the meaning behind that as I go through the video. And then we'll go sign by sign as well. I'm going to probably have to do quite a complete reading since it's been a while since I've done something. And then Uranus is taking us back into territory that we were already in June up until the 7th of July. So actually, Uranus is going back into the sort of May-June period where it was already at these degrees. The degree points, let's say it's going to be stationing direct on the 4th of February. All the times that I'm using here, meaning dates and times, are universal time. I prefer to use universal time because it's where the time zones are calculated from, so you can add or subtract depending. So this might, for example, be the day before, but it's basically around the same time. And for these outer planet retrogrades, it's so slow that they're actually at these degree points for many, many days before and after. So until from the 7th of November until the 26th of April, Uranus will be in Taurus, but it was briefly in Gemini from the 7th of July until the 7th of November. So we just got a kind of an initial taste of what that's like. I'm not sure that we can really say what that actually represents, except for very specific things that may have happened at specific degrees in your chart. That would be up to the second degree of Gemini. So it's not enough information to go by for the next 7.5 years when from April when Uranus goes into Gemini fully. So I will do, of course, follow-up videos on that and talk more about those specifics. But here we're returning to somewhere where we've already been, and it has a lot to do with the sort of April, May, June period of this year. In many ways. With reference to Jupiter, Jupiter is retrograding back to the point that it was from 25 degrees of Cancer back to the point that it was in August. So for the Jupiter cycle, we're looking at everything that's pretty much happened since August. So these are interesting dynamics because the Jupiter cycle is also picking up on the Saturn retrograde, which I've already covered as well back into Pisces. Saturn is going to station direct, and they are, although they're in a trine, both at 25 degrees of their sign, it doesn't perfect. So for fussy astrologers, a perfected trine is where something completes and the cycle can be said to be perfected is the traditional word, but exact. And the next time, in fact, the only time that Jupiter and Saturn will be in a trine exactly will be in August of 2026 when they're actually both in fire signs, when by the time Jupiter is in Leo and then Saturn is into Aries. So nonetheless, they are slow-moving planets and they do have a lot of emphasis in terms of their effects in this trine. So this is part of the grand water trine that we've been describing now for weeks. Um, and it's part of the story of the Jupiter retrograde cycle as well. And that's something that will be kind of held until the early weeks of December. So we're really in this kind of dynamic of flowing change that it has a lot to do with the water element and the earth element now that Uranus is back in Taurus. I'm going to try and broach them separately, but because they interact, it's really difficult to kind of parse them out. So there will always be a reference to the other. Um, Basically, if we boil it down, there's so much change that is happening and that has happened over the last few months. We now have an opportunity to integrate this. So think of it as a digestive cycle. This is now we're trying to extract the nutrients from what we have just swallowed really quickly, and with a sense of urgency over the last few months. And now, when we have this water trine, water represents the memory, it represents emotions, it represents everything that is intuitive. Not that other elements can't be intuitive, but water is that deep knowing, it's a deep intuition. And we're going deeper into that. We're going deeper into the sort of mystery of life. And that will correspond also to the Mercury retrograding back into Scorpio and picking up again on this grand water trine. And before that even happens, just a few days from now, the sun will also trigger that grand water trine. And then later in the month, Venus will once again trigger the grand water trine. So these are things I'll come back to, otherwise we'll be here all day. It's a busy sky. These are busy, busy times, as you can probably feel. And they're really a sort of a summary of everything that we've been encountering over the last certainly year, quite intensively, and maybe the last few years. It's an opportunity for us to integrate and especially try to find an inner stability when we're working with water. It sometimes feels quite like we can't really understand or catch what we're feeling because it's so deep or so unconscious. And those are the water houses are the moksha houses. They are the houses of the astrology chart, which take us away from this earthly reality. They take us into something more if ethereal or emotional or spiritual. And again, not to say that any of the other signs are not also have their own relationship to that, but with the water signs, it tends to be a little bit unconscious or hidden beneath the radar. And so this is something that we can really work on by bringing up to our conscious awareness the things that have changed and have been happening to us, whether it be through our individual life or through our collective experience. And as we go through this trine, it gives us an opportunity to pull it all together, to kind of pull together where are we right now, emotionally, psychologically. The psyche is also involved here. And even to a certain extent materially, because that's part of the Uranus return to Taurus, which I'll speak about briefly in a moment. So this notion of the understanding things from an intuitive place, from a psychological place, and from an emotional place is going to create a foundation, ideally, for what we're going to rely upon, especially with the Jupiter sense of optimism and potential for deeper spiritual understanding and growth, to rely upon when things shapeshift in 2026 and we start going faster and stronger into change. Because then we're going to be working with mostly air and fire. And these water emphasis, the emphasis here that we have with really strong water influence, it's not going to be there. It's going to be something that we're reacting to based on outer needs or a pull towards the outer, a pull towards inspiration or activation that may be more based on the mind, based on the intellect, based on social connections, for example, where here we're really integrating something very deeply personal. Those water houses are always the hidden, it's like the part of us that we don't always show. They're considered mute. The water signs are considered mute because there's an internalization of the energy. We're experiencing that, but people don't always notice what we're experiencing from the inside out. So especially because we have this Jupiter just stationing retrograde, still roughly at the same degree, by the way, even though I'm doing this 2 days later. As I said, they hold their degree points. The slower moving planets hold their degree points for a long time when they turn around, both direct and retrograde. So as Jupiter is retrograding now, really close to this trine with Saturn, it gets a lot of support for long-term activation. And we can think about this as a sustaining influence. So we're becoming aware of all of the things that we've been grappling with Saturn, for example, in that April-May time zone. And then with the Jupiter right now, since we're looking back over the months since the 17th of August, we're working to establish something. We're working to ground what we have understood needs changing, needs reflection, perhaps needs more structure, because the Jupiter in Cancer relies on, or is about really expanding our sense of nurturance, connection. It can be family connections, it can be connections through our own internal connection to how we're feeling, and connection to wisdom, which is a very Jupiterian quality. And Jupiter is currently ruling until the middle of, or until the end of July, pretty much the third week of July. Jupiter is ruling the North Node, which is extremely important because that's a kind of the sense of where we're pulled towards, which is in Pisces. And Jupiter also is ruling Saturn and Neptune at the same time. Neptune, of course, retrograded back into Pisces on the 22nd of October, so I've already done a video about that as well. And I just put in the fixed stars because there's also, I think, an element of that that can describe a few of the things that we're grappling with as we go forward, as we deepen our understanding, able to go forward, to make us able to go forward. Sorry, my brain's not working very well. This movement forward is, let's say, established in 2025. So what we have understood and what we will understand through these retrograde cycles will support us, ideally, the more that we're reflecting back in time. There's a lot going on in November that's quite significant, and that especially includes a week from now, we have a new moon in Scorpio at the end of Scorpio that's in opposition to this Uranus. And I will talk about that in a separate video because there's so much to describe about that new moon. It's a very special one, and I'll do that in the next couple of days. It's something that will be a part of this deeper awareness and understanding, kind of a new cycle within the cycle of cleaning up the old, if you like, a new way of interpreting that. And that moon will be also in a square to Neptune, and that's quite significant. So we now have Uranus and Neptune in a sextile. And as we've got Neptune just backing into Pisces, we've got it back on Shiat, which is a fixed star, which can be destabilizing. So this also adds, as I've mentioned in previous videos, it adds to this notion of Gandhanta. Gandhanta in Jyotish, or the Vedic astrology approach, is when when planets move from water to fire. And that water to fire shift is adding to the instability of the 29th degree, which is already a critical degree. And in Pisces, we have Shiat there. So it's like the king of unstable degrees, if you like. And so Shiat can contribute to weather disruption, to earthquakes, to big issues at sea or with water. And so the fact that Neptune is on that, and Neptune representing many of those aspects anyway within Pisces, all the more so, is going to be something that we are continuing to grapple with, because this will only dissipate in the early months of 2026. We've had this basically the entire year of 2025, so this is not a new thing. I just wanted to highlight that because later on in December, from the 10th of December, and I'll continue to reference this, Uranus goes back to conjoin Algol. Now, both for Shiat and Algol, as well as Altair, where we find Pluto, more about that in a minute, we need to have a 2 degree 10-minute orb of conjunction only. We don't do any other aspect except conjunctions with fixed stars. And so if you have anything within 2 degrees 10 minutes of Algol, where it is currently at 2632 of Taurus, then this will be affecting you. If you have anything within 2 degrees 10 minutes of Shiat, which is currently at 2944 of Pisces, so that means just into Aries, where we found Saturn and Neptune throughout the mid months of 2025. This will affect you very profoundly. And just where Altair is, where there's a lot of benefit, and this is the friendliest star of the crowd, with perhaps the least friendly planet, Pluto, or at least the most demanding. We could call it the most demanding. Why I'm mentioning this, and that, by the way, with Pluto, that will continue right through February, March of 2026. So again, we've been here before. This is the story of 2025. We're just now going back into it in a profound way, and noting that that will be then the completion of the story of these outer planets with, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto creating this dynamic in the months ahead that are repeating the story we already have gone through. So no need to panic, no fear, no hysteria. We've been here. This is what we've been experiencing, is that we're coming back to deal with that, maybe imprint something that we've understood around all of that and utilize it in a conscious way. Our goal has a reputation for being really challenging, and Uranus in Taurus is very much about disruption of all of the earthly stability that we want to rely on. We would like to be able to cling to and rely on things that are stable. And because we've got Uranus in Taurus again, as I said, this doesn't come into the orb, into the range of conjunction until after the 10th of December, 9th, 10th of December. Um, we're feeling this instability that we've already become familiar with, and we're just now trying to figure out what next. How do we integrate this? How do we recognize where we now see where we have to respond differently, whether that be with reference to our values, our valuables, the things that we have, our food and food security, for example. And another thing that is related to that, or our stuff basically, is supply chain things to do with how we manage our values and how we manage valuable things, money systems, financial systems, and so on. So with all of this shifting, we're going back to something that, as I said, has been done before, but we need to revise and change that. And I think we can find a lot of instability coming forward in the months ahead around these bigger social issues as well. So this might be applying to you personally. Remember, 2 degrees-ish on either side of these fixed stars, but you will most definitely see that outwardly, out in the world, in the so-called real world. And so while you're dealing with your inner experience of life and remodeling yourself from the inside out and trying to understand where you are emotionally, trying to establish a foundation for yourself in terms of your self-awareness and your inner guidance, let's say, you're going to be affected by the outer experience as well, and that will be changing quite significantly in a way that is very, very visible. Um, and again, as we've already experienced, so we're going back to some things that we need to clean up. We need to change and move forward into something new, and all of that newness will start to take shape as the planets themselves settle into their new signs. And that again is, so January, the end of 26th of January for Neptune moving back into Aries, the 14th of February for Saturn moving back into Aries, and then finally the 26th of April before Uranus goes back into Gemini. So we have some time to work with this. Jupiter will stay in Cancer until the end of June 2026. And so that dynamic of Jupiter is going to be mirroring the changes, but in a way that is still holding the energy of Cancer, which is extremely helpful, very beneficial for what we're going through in these times, because we need this feeling of anchoring and stability and optimism so that we can move forward into this new thing without freaking out, basically, because there is going to be a lot of disruption to what we have grown accustomed to. And that is definitely what Uranus and Taurus represents. It's shaking up what we're accustomed to, what we feel makes us secure, what we feel makes us connected, let's say, to what we feel is reliable in that Taurian way. Taurus doesn't like, it's a fixed earth sign, doesn't like change. It likes to know where its stuff is. It likes to know how many beans do I have in the cupboard. And with Uranus there, this has become very unsettled since early May, late April, early May of 2018. We're ending something that we also experienced in the late 30s and into the 40s in the era of the start of the Second World War up until the conclusion of the Second World War. Really, this is where we are between 2025 and 2026. So when Uranus goes into Gemini, that will reflect the period of time in the early 40s, 42, when the United States joined the Second World War. And that again is being mirrored right now in terms of US engagement in different conflicts around the world, which actually never really ended since that period of time 84 years ago. But we're looking at that differently now. We're looking at all of these things with different eyes. And I think that is also important to recall. The US Pluto return is still kind of in effect in the sense that where Pluto is at 27-ish of Capricorn for the US, the progressed Pluto in the US progressed chart, the Sibley chart, is at 29.5 degrees. And so Pluto is still very much in orb of that US Pluto return. This is also the Jupiter return of the United States. So another interesting dynamic. So there's a lot that's at play here. That's something that is shifting the power dynamic in the world, the social or power dynamic that we have become accustomed to, certainly in the last, nearly a century. And it's been more than a lifetime for the average lifespan. So this is something that we're having to integrate, having to understand on a personal level, with a lot of support, a lot of harmony, potentially, if we dig deep, if we dig into our own awareness of what are my values, where is it that I need to make changes based on what makes me feel stable and secure. This is a great time to also recognize how much of the outside world is distracting us from our essence, from who we really are, from what we really need to know. What I find interesting is that Jupiter stationed retrograde very strongly in a square to Eris. And remember, the bigger story of 2025 and 2026 is this conjunction with Chiron and Eris. I've done a whole video on that, which mirrors the 1971-72 period. That also is very much about change, and definitely very much about changing financial structures, as that was when the gold standard was dropped, and also changing the social fabric, which we saw a lot of in that video. So you can look back in my channel for that notion of the Eris Chiron conjunction, a real big shapeshifter in terms of our social fabric. The Jupiter squaring that is asking where we are in our sense of agency, in our sense of sovereignty, which is very much related to Aries, which wants to do it myself. I'll do it on my own way, do it on my own timing. I'll do it now, I'll do it yesterday. And the Jupiter in Cancer, which is now reflecting on, is this working for me? Is this nourishing to me? Is this working through something that I can connect with others? Where am I blocking connection? And so this square can be a real adaptation right now to see where we need to work on that, where we are actually we think we're connecting, but it might not be really true. And where we can find the support in that Jupiter trining Saturn, and then all of the other planets that come through late Scorpio to keep emphasizing this roughly 25-degree grand water trine, we can really build on an understanding of what is my role in this whole dynamic. And then when Saturn and Neptune moves into Aries, that will be where we step up and take responsibility. This is me showing up in the world, and how do I show up, and how do I master myself out in the world based on a psychological or emotional security that we've established through that Jupiter in Cancer cycle. So this Jupiter in Cancer retrograde doesn't extract from the power of Jupiter. When planets are retrograde, they actually work very powerfully, because especially when they are retrograde, and the outer planets especially are felt as being very, very close to the Earth. The retrograde cycle pulls the planet in towards the Earth, where normally the retrograde cycles of the outer planets happen, the turning around, or the peak point, let's say, of the retrogradation is when the outer planet is in opposition to the sun, as opposed to the inner planets like Mercury, Mars, Venus. When their retrograde cycle peaks, it's when they are conjoining the sun. So that's a big distinction as well. So think about that, Jupiter in opposition to the sun. When the sun will be in Capricorn, and Jupiter will be opposing that, and that will come in January, you're going to find this really strong emphasis of this internal guide, this internal awareness. It's highlighted because that's in opposition. The sun is highlighting the planet even more so. So by January, we have quite a strong influence coming up in terms of integrating and understanding things, and that will correspond around the 20th of January, which I will, of course, come back and talk about, to a triple conjunction of Venus, Pluto, and Altair. So Venus, Pluto will be at 3 degrees, and Altair will be at 2 degrees, and that will be on the 20th. And that will correspond to Mercury being in the heart of the sun, Cazimi, with Mars right next door, a degree away. So this opposition, this period of maximum experience, or the pinnacle, let's say, of the retrograde cycle for Jupiter, corresponds to a lot of really powerful integration, powerful change that affects those aspects of ourselves that relate to our finances, our security, our relationship to society, our relationship to responsibility. Capricorn represents integrity. And the Cancer aspect of that is the emotional integrity and the emotional relationship that we might have to ourselves and to others. Of course, Cancer reflects the mother nurturing, but also the family unit. And if we think from the highest perspective, or let's say the truest perspective, we are all family. Just got Sister Sledge in my head there. We are family. There we go. And this is the dynamic here that we want to integrate over these next few months. So with Jupiter 4 months, with the other retrograde cycles now kind of nearing the end of the cycle, with Saturn going in 2 weeks' time, stationing direct again at 25 degrees of Pisces. And I will come back and talk more about that. So just so that this doesn't keep going on and on. But this is just a beautiful time to harmonize all of these things. And again, with Uranus, that station direct doesn't happen until I think it's February 4th. So we've got a bit of time to let this stuff percolate and integrate all of these different things. And again, think of this as grounding yourself in the things that perhaps were unsettling up until this point, and getting familiar with what needs to change in your own life. And I would say also really stripping away things that are irrelevant, or things that you've just recognized are done and past their sell-by date, and where you realize, okay, I don't want to waste my time with this anymore, or with that way of engaging. So this is a work of preparation that is based on a lot of things that we've already experienced. So I want to emphasize, oftentimes people get very upset. How will this affect me? What's going on? Don't ask that question anymore. How will I work with this energy is a better question. Work with that sense of sovereignty, especially because now for 2.5 years from February, we're going to have Saturn in Aries. How are you taking responsibility for your own self and your own actions and the things that you need to do independently? So it's actually a very, I think, rich time. It's retrograde cycles are a big opportunity, and now we've got the Mercury retrograde at the same time, right up till the 29th of November, to support us in this inner questing. I will go sign by sign. It'll make more sense to you as I go sign by sign, and that allows you to see how that might impact you. And when I do the sign by signs, keep in mind that it is for the ascendant, the sun, and the moon. Uh, I always get this question. It's the short form is that the ascendant shows us the places in your life that this will take shape, so it becomes maybe more evident to many people. Um, and that always depends on the degree of your ascendant too, because some will be affected more based on the planetary degrees. Um, and then the sun represents our sense of self, our consciousness, our awareness of being here and what is our purpose, our sense of, what am I doing with my life and why am I doing that? How do I navigate my sense of identity throughout the world? And then we have the moon, which is the internal or the mental or the emotional integration of life. And how do I feel about these things? And it's a much more intimate part of ourselves. It can also directly represent the body. The moon represents the mind-body complex. And that can also represent the mother, the female aspect of the self, just as the sun can represent the father or the male component, the identity and the outward drive. So do listen for all three because they give you elements of yourself. And I think that there's no way to separate out which has more influence on you without noticing your natal chart. So, for some with a day chart, for example, the sun will be really prominent. For others with a night chart, the moon will be really prominent. And those are things that we can only see in your individual chart. So, see what lands, whatever you can sense is important for you. And then you'll find that you understand internally, rather than asking me or any other astrology as an external reference point. Feel your way forward, listen to it, and feel, does this resonate? How can I see myself in this bigger, a different alternative dimension of self? Right, let me just check my notes here. And yeah, interestingly, again, I'm going to mention that while Jupiter is stationing here, well, technically on the 11th of November, I'm a bit late. Uh, as Jupiter stations here, it's stationing on the US Jupiter. So there's something here again about abundance and valuables and the economy in general, which is very much a part of the Jupiterian relationship. And maybe also the sense of faith or belief system that dominates. And I think we're seeing that fragmenting in the US. And I suspect that between the Pluto return and this Jupiter movement through the US chart, and then with Uranus going into Gemini as of the end of April, and this is where the values of the United States, which alas, impact the entire world, will really be shifting. So we're going to see that. And when I say shifting, immediately some of you will be thinking for the better, for the worse. It's just change. So we have to see how that all plays out. But these are a big shift in values. And then when Jupiter actually comes to the 15th degree of Cancer, and again, I'll refer to these things again and again. So it's a lot to take in one video, but I'll come back to it again and again. But when Jupiter gets back to 15 degrees, as I said, it was there on the 17th of August already. Um, it is going to be very close to what is it now? Not Spica, sorry, Sirius, the fixed star Sirius, which is where the U.S. sun is, which in the time of the Sibley chart is roughly around 13 degrees, and fixed stars, although they're meant to be fixed, they do move quite slowly because of the precession of the equinoxes, and that is now roughly at 14 degrees of Cancer. So Jupiter will be a degree away from what did I say? Sirius. So this is a story. This retrograde cycle is also a story of what is going on in the United States. Maybe later in whatever, maybe December or something, I will do a video on that. I'm not going to include political things here today or geopolitics. It's just too much. I've been really struggling with my health and also um, with my emails because something's going on with the iCloud and my emails are going berserk, and I'm seeing them appear and seeing them disappear as soon as I look at them. And that includes client emails, my emails from my accountant and my notary in terms of establishing my business, and all of these things have cost me hours and days of time. If any of you have any experience with that, emails, some of them disappearing, some of them not, some of them coming in, some of them not. When I Google, when I search for certain keywords, I get emails that are 10 years old, 15 years old, and not the ones that just came in this morning. So it's been driving me mental, and uh, I'm doing what I can to catch up. This also means that the annuals are delayed. I had hoped to get them out by this weekend. There's no way because I couldn't even speak my way without coughing through that, and that would be incredibly annoying. So I'm going to put them on pre-sale this weekend. I will announce that with the next video that I do. So this weekend, and that will be a pre-sale price until the 1st of December when the price goes back to the normal price, and they will be available to everyone for download. Or it's not a download, it's a link. And by the way, that link will be a link to a Rumble video and not a YouTube video because I'm so done with YouTube. Yeah, just that's one. That's that. So it will be accessible to everyone, and you can watch it without even having an account on Rumble. You can just follow along. Rumble is the free speech channel, and you can ignore the stuff you don't like. We're all adults here. You can just ignore what you don't like and don't let that in because here you're establishing your emotional and psychological foundation that is going to be unperturbable, so that you won't be perturbed when things start shaking up in the spring. Um, right. So let me see. I'm just checking again. Oh, one more thing that's a very strong interest, and it's interesting even today. Black Moon Lilith, which is it's a mathematical point. It's not a planet, but always very interesting to examine, much like Eris. It shows us where there's some irritability or frustration, where I say when we're pissed off about something, or where we feel like our, especially our feminine power, the divine feminine, which we all carry, has been somehow unjustly treated or uh, has been abused in some way. So it's very much about standing up for oneself, and this is in the Scorpio area of the sky, Scorpio, with reference to secrets and with reference to things that are hidden emotionally or psychologically, but also in terms of things that are hidden from ourselves in interactions with others. So Scorpio has a lot to do with building up trust, having a feeling of being able to have faith in the other or in the system or in the whatever, life itself, even. And here we have Lilith with Venus, and Venus is now in her fall. She's in Scorpio for the next 3 weeks, and that dynamic of Venus is going to be part of the December triad when Venus is going to be part of the grand water trine as well. So more on that later. But just keep in mind that since the 15th of October, so already for a month, we've had Lilith in Scorpio. She does retrograde back and forth, so it's a long journey. And she's leaving Scorpio July, what did I write? 6th, I think it is. Can't read my own writing. No, July 10th even. That's my eyesight that's at fault there. So July 10th, she is coming back in or going into Sagittarius. But until then, we have this journey of Lilith in Scorpio as well. And I think that part of this whole dynamic of shifting and this dynamic of questioning values that we get right through till the end of April with Uranus, going over the values that we've seen emerging through maybe global circumstances or our collective circumstances with reference to the Pluto in Aquarius and the Uranus in Taurus, and of course our own sense of values and our stuff. Again, Venus representing all of those things too. This is something quite significant that we can learn about, whether it's digging deep in terms of our own maybe psychological relationship to those things, or even emotional relationship to those things. Where do we stand on the range of feeling secure and can we let go of control? This is also part of the South Node dynamic in Virgo, but also in becoming keenly aware of what's going on. And that is going to be a useful tool between now and next July to see how things are changing, who's doing the changing, who benefits from the changes, and understanding our role in all of that. Because these are interesting times that we're living in, and things are going to be shape-shifting quite a lot. And I will cover these things again in the annual readings where I go bit by bit through the year, and those readings will be quite extensive, sign by sign. I think that covers it pretty much. So we're looking at emotional empowerment, we're looking at psychological empowerment, we're looking inward at this time. It's not wasted time. It doesn't mean you're not engaging or doing anything. It would be a good time to pull back from like serious long-term new projects. This is a good time to revise what's already underway, or pick up again what had already started and kind of tapered off, but not a great time for an absolute beginning in something completely new. And that again will depend on your natal chart, and we do need to let life go. It doesn't mean you should sort of hibernate in your room. It just means that a lot more has to come through your intuition than through this feeling of jumping in and taking action. Mars will, because it's in Sagittarius, may have us impatient to take action, but it's not really the time. It's the you might find that it's better to use that Mars Sagittarius energy as inspiration. What inspired action can I take? That's the Mars action, inspiration coming from that Sagittarian fire quality, and not jump into something that you're not really sure about. Certainly until December, when Mercury moves out, the end of December, when Mercury moves out of its retrograde shadow, I think that would be good advice. And Mercury will be leaving Sagittarius then to go into Capricorn by the new year. I think that's it. There's a lot to cover because I haven't done these videos for so long. I'm just trying to think of all the other things that I need to mention that I haven't already. I will cover a lot more and kind of repeat what I'm saying here in terms of the new moon, which is just a remarkable new moon that we're in for. And I'll, of course, give you the lunar families there too. And I'm going to do a lunar families workshop that will be in the second half of December. And that lunar families workshop will help you understand what I'm even talking about when I'm talking about the lunar families or the lunar gestation period, and how to calculate that and how to calculate that in your natal chart, so you can also track your own moon and see how different cycles will be relevant to you. And so more information coming up about that, and I will post that when I do the new moon video coming up this weekend. So hang on. If you need to get in touch with me, please try and communicate through my website, which is linked below. For those who have emailed me, because I know you have, because I've seen your name appear and then disappear from my email list, it's just been like the most incredible ghosting I've ever experienced, or gaslighting from my own email account. If you have sent me an email and you haven't received a response and you feel like you need to know soon what the answer would be, please send it again. Send it via my site, or just know that I will whenever I fix this problem, I think I need to completely dismantle my email account and restart it or re-upload it. It's going to take me a while because I just don't have the time. I'm seeing so many clients at the moment. So I think that's it. Thanks for bearing with me. Thanks for being here. And again, I didn't say it, but welcome or welcome back to all of you. I do appreciate your views and your likes and certainly your subscribes. I do appreciate you being here. I don't monetize my channel, as many of you know, for mostly there's so many reasons for Google. Let's call it Google reasons. For Google reasons, I do not monetize my channel. And I do appreciate your support. Some of you are incredibly generous, and I am just absolutely gobsmacked by the amount that you support me in this work. I do really appreciate that. And another way of supporting me in this work is also to buy the annual readings, because that is a source of direct income that I feel more comfortable working with, as opposed to indirect income that's coming from your clicks and views and the advertising revenue here on this platform that unfortunately we have to all be subjected to. So there we are. I think I've done it now. Oh, maybe just one more thing. Sorry, I just saw a note to myself here. The Mercury retrograde aspect of this whole story that I've given you a very, very lengthy story of internalizing, of assessing from within, of feeling your way forward, of deepening your self-awareness and deepening your feeling of grounding in yourself. Part of this dynamic of the Mercury going back into the Scorpio water sign and connecting again for the second time to this grand water trine, I feel is a very important element of the traditional way of looking at Mercury, which is the messenger of the gods. It's the psychopomp. It's what brings us in connection, the way of thinking, our capacity to receive information, the capacity to integrate and understand the information we're receiving, and to, cognate and to express that. This is part of the Mercury retrograde cycle, ruled by Jupiter, then ruled by Mars, with Mercury connecting with Mars. I'm just a day off that as well. It was on the 12th of November, so there was a Mercury-Mars connection. Again, no time to do videos on that. There'll be another one. Don't worry, there'll be another one in December. I'll speak more about that. All of this week, it's still very much in application, and so that has a lot to do with impulsive speaking, impulsive acting based on ideology or faith, and we want to again slow our roll a little bit. Be aware, for example, of issues that might arise in an emotional way, and try to sit with that while the ruler of Mars and Mercury currently is retrograding, moving very, very slowly, basically at the same degree for days on end. So this is the theme of this whole week and longer. Sit with it and be careful not to jump to conclusions. That's a very Mercury, Mars, and Sagittarius kind of keyword. Beware of jumping to conclusions, and settle yourself in and see what do I know for sure. It's interesting that just as I'm doing this video, Mercury and the moon have just perfected their square, and the moon is probably right this moment. Boom, let's try it. Yeah, look at that. It's exactly squaring. The moon has just moved one arc minute of a degree away from the square with Mars. So it's now separating from that square, but that can be testy. The moon in Virgo can be quite judgmental, fussy, dissatisfied, and the Mars Mercury can be like, chop chop, what's this all about? And beware of jumping to conclusions. Let the emotions flow through you. Don't identify with your emotions. That might be the best way of summarizing all of this. And I'm going to stop there because otherwise I'll just carry on endlessly. So there we go. I think we are ready now to go through the sign by sign. And I don't even need to be fussy about the timing. So here we are. So we're going, oh, you know what? To simplify things so that you're seeing the chart a little bit better. And I do hope that you're following along. For those who are interested in learning a bit about astrology, this can be really interesting. I'm taking away a couple of things here. Taking away the fixed stars. What will I take away? Will I keep Chiron? I will keep Chiron and I will keep Eris. Oh, go on. I'll keep Lilith as well. All right. So we'll just strip away the stars and there we are. And so for Aries, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, um, in fact, Jupiter is squaring Chiron and especially squaring your Eris in your house of self. Whether this is Sun, Moon, or Ascendant, it still represents how you feel about yourself or how you take action based on yourself. And Jupiter is now in your fourth house, where it's been since the 9th of June. And as that is part of our emotional foundation, but also our lineage, how we relate to family in the most literal sense, and also in a metaphorical sense. Um, Even the house and home and property can be part of your concerns right now, especially as Uranus has moved back in the second house, which references family, what you get support from. That also includes income, valuables, your possessions, your sense of your self-worth as well. So there's something here that is changing in a way, going back in time over the last few months, that since the middle of this year, 2025, and you're having to review that. So there may be something that you need to settle with the family. That can be something to do with property, especially because Lilith, Venus, and the Sun are in your eighth house of inherited um, aspects that can be financial inheritance or things that you inherit from the family in a more um, metaphorical sense, like the issues, problems, crises that you deal with that come through family or come through relationship, come through the other. These things might crop up right now. It's a great time for you to introspect. So basically the whole introduction is really strong for you because it's very, very literal in your case with you having the natural chart with the Aries rising. Especially for the rising sign. But Aries, the sun is exalted in your sign. And so if you are an Aries sun, you absolutely will be feeling the houses from your sun, and then the moon as well from the inner experience of self. Um, so don't believe all these people who say it's only about it's only when we get more materialistic, when we get more impatient, when we get more drawn into the outer world and less in our internalized awareness, we think that the ascendant is the thing that matters the most. So don't buy into that. That is Instagram astrology. It's not true. And we want to get down in these next 4 or 5 months, we want to get down into the deeper awareness of self because the world around us is going to be, it's going to be busy. It's going to be moving fast, probably just like you like it, Aries, but it might be a little too much. So use this time with Jupiter in your fourth to really integrate what makes me feel good, what makes me happy, what brings me a sense of security, emotional, psychological, financial security. There can be something that you actually gain in this time, around this period of time, because Venus, which is ruling your second house, but also ruling your house of relationship, is in your eighth house, and that can often reference something that you're receiving from another. Um, it may not be coming in exactly the format that you want because that is also Venus in her exile or in her detriment in Scorpio. So it's not necessarily going to give you things that are as straightforward as, for example, if she were in her own sign, Taurus. And um, I think it could have something to do with a romance as well, that for some of you it will be something to do with romantic love or marriage, because the sun, which rules your fifth house, is in the house of marriage and what you receive from marriage partners and so on. It can also have a reference to do with work in terms of business, income that you receive from business, and that might be what needs changing here. I think you'll probably have a better sense of that during or after the new moon that's coming up on what is it, the 20th of November at the 28th degree of Scorpio, because that will oppose Uranus and that will bring you a lot of information with Mercury cazimi at that time. And so if this is an issue of shared resources or money or income coming in from clients or inheritance or intimacy of all kinds, you'll know more. You'll sense what's next by a week from now and moving through that lunar cycle. Your ruler Mars is chugging its way through the ninth house, which is deeply inspiring. And that inspirational energy you can use for seeing your sense of yourself right now, your purpose. This happens every 2 years, and this is kind of like an opportunity to check in. Am I on target? Am I on purpose? Am I working through the things that I have faith in, that I feel I believe in? There may be something challenging at work in terms of wanting this, but the work aspect of it, feeling like there's an obligation, like I'm a bit stuck with that. The moon rules the fourth house where we find Jupiter, and it's in the sixth house. So something that is having to be reconsidered is actually maybe experienced as a bit of a burden, or maybe experienced as something that feels like an obligation or a challenge to overcome. It might be a health issue, and that health issue might be related to a psychological issue as well, because here we're looking at the Mercury Mars conjunction, Mercury retrograde, and all of these planets for the next few weeks are really focusing on your eighth house of the unconscious and the psychological state, with Jupiter also in your fourth house of happiness and what makes you happy. The fifth house is how you express that, and the fourth house is how you're feeling that, what you need to feel that. And the lunar axis, along with the moon, is in the sixth house of health, healing, the things that might be holding you back. And the second house, where we find Uranus now moving back, can also be some reference to your diet or the things that you're doing that support you or otherwise. And then you want to come back to what you're doing that's not good for you, if this is the case, and even if it's the case in terms of your finances, because Saturn and Neptune are both in your house of loss and the house of self-undoing and the house of things that are going on behind the scenes, including your own kind of relationship to your unconscious, to dreams, and so on. So this is a wonderful opportunity for you to really get clear of taking responsibility for how you are in this moment, like really owning it, especially because well, end of March, sorry, January for Neptune, and then 14th of February for Saturn, you're going to have Saturn, Neptune in your first house once again. That's going to be where then the rubber hits the road and you need to take responsibility. You need to step up. So if you're working through all of these things from either inherited patterns or your own physical or mental health, or your sense of faith in terms of what you are relying on in life, this is a great opportunity to establish all of that before the bigger changes come in early 2026. So you're fortifying yourself in the most literal way, physically and emotionally and psychologically, and then perhaps also financially. I mean, the finances resonate with how you feel about yourself. So again, that Uranus might be just kind of nudging you in that direction. What has that meant for you over the last 7.5 years? And what will it mean for you again over the next half a year? Because Uranus is there, basically at the end of your second house until the end of April. So for many of you, that will correspond to your birthday as well. You'll feel that Uranus is right back at this degree around your birthday time for Aries Sun people. That Uranus, where it is right now, is going to show up around your birthday time. So a good opportunity for Aries Sun people to deeply reflect on their sense of identity, purpose, career, self, um, and again, the relationship with the family or whatever supports you, your values. So I think that's kind of what I need to say about all of this there, Aries. It's a big moment in time for all of the cardinal signs but particularly now for you over the next couple of years, you're taking on the mantle that your Piscean friends, had taken on for the last 14 years. So it's a big shift. Just know that it's a big shift. And so ask your Pisces friends how 2025 has been for them, and you'll get a glimpse into this new energy for you. And Pisces had Chiron as well in their sign also up until 2018. So there's a lot that you can learn from Pisces, although Pisces tend to be able to kind of roll with the punches in a way that Aries doesn't really like. Aries is a little impatient. So maybe with the Jupiter retrograde in your fourth house, I could actually sum it up by saying, learn to be patient. And this will serve you really well. Reconnect with family, reconnect with ancestors, reconnect with your inner experience of self in the most profound way that you know how to do. And you'll find that everything that moves forward from this time, and especially into 2026, will really flourish. You will succeed through it. Right. And I'll tell you more if you want to know more about 2026 in my annual readings, and you'll find more about that in the link below. Okay, Aries, see you in the next video. So for Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, this is also a really big moment in time for you because you have so much activity in your house of relationship, and now you've got Uranus opposing all of that in your house of self. So we're back to where we were prior to basically up until early July. And from March, April, May, these are the energies that you were picking up on personally with Uranus in the end of your sign. This is especially so if you have Sun, Moon, or Ascendant at anywhere between, say, 24, 25 degrees of Taurus and right up to the end of Taurus, because that's where we're going to find Uranus backing up into. And I'll keep referring to this as we go forward. We've got 6 months of this. So you've got 6 months to go over how much you've changed and integrate that and realize that there's some aspects of what you had changed that you're maybe not yet comfortable with, or realizing that was maybe, precipitous change. And now it's time to go back to brass tacks and review how it is that I need to be different, how it is that I am ready to accept my new role in my life. Because this is part of how you're stepping out into the world. It's very much a way of showing up that's new and different for you. And that has been the case for 7.5 years. So we've got another half a year of this for Taurus. And in fact, for the early Taurus suns, Uranus will still be in your first house for your solar return, because it's only on the 26th of April that Uranus moves into Gemini. So if you are born, I think it would be like the second half of April. So whatever that sort of the third week of April, that give that again. If you look at your degrees of your sun, then that would be for 24, 25 degrees up until the end of Taurus. This is your solar return. So this is part of an identity that you're going to carry for quite some time. But nonetheless, the reverberations of this change will continue well into 2026 for all of you, most especially if you were born with those degrees where the sun is. So think in terms of, where is my comfort zone around change? As the saying goes, I'm safe. It's only change. And recognizing that change is inherent to life itself. It's an aspect of, even as you've been listening to me here, and maybe even only this couple of minutes for those of you who jumped the introduction, this is, you've already changed. You've already had millions of cells transforming as we've been covering this topic for the last few minutes. And this is the story of life. Nothing stays the same. There's only an apparent similarity. And when we're clinging to that outer appearance of things, or the outer comforts, or the sense of safety that we're craving, basically due to too much ego attachment or too much fear around trust and trust issues, this is where we suffer. And so when you can let yourself move into the flow of things, you'll find that you just grow in ways that are absolutely magical. And then you can use that Taurian stability in an interior way rather than looking for that stability outside of you, like not wanting anything to change in the relationships or in the way that you do life in general. That the refusal to change is like stagnancy. Think of it that way. It's like a stagnant, muddy patch where nothing really is able to take root because there's no life force in stagnancy. It starts to putrefy. Um, just to give you some really great words to work with. So you want to keep that in mind. Where have I been stagnant? Where do I need to shake things up? Where do I need to ultimately say yes or ultimately say no, and start things in a new direction? And certainly when we come to the Taurus new moon on the 20th of November in your opposite signs, in your sign or the house of the other, this would be a brilliant opportunity to see that as a new beginning in terms of how you engage out in the world. Saturn and Neptune are back in your 11th house of your future, the sense of what the future holds and who do you want to go into the future with. And you've been sort of selecting and working through that over the last many years. So this is really tying up the end of a cycle. With Saturn, it's tying up the end of a nearly 3-year cycle. And with Neptune, it's tying up a cycle that began in April of 2011. So we're looking at something that it's an ongoing process through the next 3 months, but that has huge significance in terms of the ending, and refreshing of something. The node will still be there in your 11th house, focusing that direction into your future, into the notion of gains, what gains are coming towards you. And that's preparing you until, in that direction until roughly the end of July, the third week of July, 2026. And now with Jupiter in your third house of choice, of your willpower, how you use your willpower, how you communicate, how you relate to your extended family, how you relate even to your early childhood, um, how you relate to siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, and how you relate to your neighbors, which is part of the relationship dynamic that we have. The third, seventh, and 11th have to do with our social relationships and our sense of enjoyment, our sense of outreach. How do we reach out into the life of others? And for Taurus, it's very much an emotional relationship. So you can find yourself with very fixed notions or very fixed opinions around things that need to be looked at, that need to be questioned, so that you can reorganize your relationship to the other, in so many ways. That's certainly what November and December are holding for you, but this is the bigger extended period of time that takes us right through till the early months of 2026. So you can use this opportunity to reflect on your mindset, on the way that you communicate things, on the things that you believe in, the things that you take action on. What can you prioritize with Jupiter in the third house as well? That can be really helpful in terms of using your wisdom, uh, intuition, perhaps also, to decide what it is that I want to spend time on. What am I wasting my time with? Jupiter is squaring Chiron and Eris, that is in your 12th house. So there may be something here about what is going on behind the scenes, a little bit of healing that might be healing the past, or it might be healing a sense of your unconscious, so becoming more aware of how you're driven by unconscious motives, unconscious fears of inadequacy, unconscious resentments around not being seen in some way. Uranus in the first house is part of that dynamic, which is like how do you show up? So can you blame others for not seeing you when you're constantly hiding yourself from others? That's a very Taurian thing. Can you blame others for not honoring you when you're not necessarily being forthright even with yourself and how you relate to yourself? With a Jupiter in the third house, squaring that Chiron Eris in the 12th can really expose some things in a way that's useful. It requires you to stop and look at it. It requires you to kind of think about it. Am I doing this well? Am I using my skills in the best way? Do I really believe this? Do I really think this way? Am I being over generous? So it's not that you're necessarily doing something wrong, in general, but there can be this feeling of, maybe being over generous and then resenting that. That's another Taurian thing, where because Taurus has Libra on the sixth house, so there's always this feeling of service made to look good. It's like in service to your image that you often engage in service, and so that's an important thing to look at, because there can be a lot of resentment behind that. Um, and with the opportunity here to really look at that and say, like that, that expression, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So where am I causing my own upset? And can I own that? Can I take advantage of this moment in time to really look at my motives and what I need to do, how I need to show up, and how I can change that. So this is really a gift for Taurus, having these last months of Uranus in your sign, because you already have so much work, so much data that you can work with, so much information that you can grow through, and now work through the changes that are helpful and let go of those that are not. Um, and then, of course, the moon, which is your exaltation ruler, is in the fifth house. It's soon after I do this video. Probably by the time you see this video, it will be conjoining the south node. So that it is interesting in and of itself, because the moon is relating back by rulership to Jupiter, which is in your third house. It rules your third house. And the moon in the fifth house is also showing us something about self-expression. And again, part of the Taurian image or self-expression is in the Virgo sense. So it's very much in that energy of service and um, um, teaching, healing. That's what makes Taurus such strong healers. It's Virgo on the fifth. That's how they express all of that. And the fifth is also love. It's children. It's your projects and the things that you create. And the thing is, when the moon is there, and especially with the south node and the moon together, there can be a realization of dissatisfaction around some things. Now, that can be on a spectrum of being overly critical, towards being perfectionist, both of which kind of merge at some point. They're the same. They're two sides of the same coin. And somewhere in the middle is realizing this could be better. This can be different, but taking ownership of it rather than blaming and saying this needs to be better because you whatever. Um, and that's especially true because Mars and Mercury are in your house of intimacy, in your house of marriage, in your house of what you share with others or what you receive from others. And so this can be at this moment, as you're listening to this, but in a general sense, it can be a moment to really know where your emotional buttons are being triggered and you're not taking responsibility for how you're showing up, how you're expressing yourself. And the Mercury Mars can be dissatisfaction. And it's in that eighth house, which is very much about the intimacy and the connection that might be there, and that there can be some words spoken, or there can be some excitement that is not entirely merited or grounded. That can also produce a lot of insight and creativity. That's not that it's always negative, but just because it's squaring the moon, as I'm doing this video, I'm referring to that particular connection there. And that is an interesting signature to look at since the moon is your exaltation ruler. Venus also is not in strong dignity. She's in exile from your sign, which she rules. And so there is something here that is about relationship dynamics, and that might be, again, something that feels a little dissatisfactory or something that requires a little bit more adjustment. It's still Venus, so it's really still very beneficial. But as Mars is in the eighth house, and ruling that Venus, there's something that needs to be dug up, something that needs to be exposed or revealed based on something that is more intimate. And that can be intimate with reference to your emotions and your psychological state, not just sexual intimacy. I think we've covered it there. All right, Taurus. I'm pretty sure we covered all the important points, and we will come back. I'll see you in a couple of days for a video about the new moon that's coming up in your opposite sign. Good luck with everything, and I'll see you in the next video. Gemini, so you've just now, you're just free now of a great keyword, by the way, of Uranus, which had been in your sign from the 7th of July till the 7th of November. And now you've had about a week of Uranus moving into your 12th house, which is the hidden aspects of life and the places in life that feel either that you want to keep for yourself, that you want to kind of keep discreet, or that you're not really clear on things that are going on either unconsciously or in terms of relationships that are discreet, or the ways that you're working with people that are behind the scenes, not necessarily problematically so, but just discreet, or the ways that things are shaping up with people at a distance, like faraway lands or foreigners of some kind, or even internet, in that sense that we relate to people now online from who knows where. Um, and so you're now going back over a period of time that you already covered, April, May, June, which is very much to do with this how things function or dysfunction in your way of showing up for yourself, or in those areas of life, in the areas of the unconscious mind or the dream world. You might have immense insights, and this is a fantastically um, as you might have already experienced for 7.5 years with Uranus there, you probably have had some brilliant insights. And that once Uranus goes into your first house again, you can start to apply what you've learned that might have you reaching into a different spiritual relationship with your life. It can also plug you into a different relationship with your ancestors as well. That's spiritual spirit guides and actual ancestors, which is also 12th house stuff. What else is 12th house? Oh, loss, issues of loss. And that can be material loss, it can be personal loss, it can be financial loss. But also, it's that notion of what am I doing that is actually making me a little bit wobbly and insecure, or feeling lost in my sense of self or my connection to spirit. So examine all of that over the next 6 months and really look at it so in such a way that you are clear where you are getting your stability from. With Uranus going through the 12th, your stability must come from the inside out. It needs to come from your sense of connection to spirit. And that will bring you huge benefits when Uranus goes through your first house for another 7 years, because that's where you're going to be different. But your difference is based on what you're understanding, that is in your inner depth over these last few years. And you'll have an opportunity right up until the end of April, 26th of April, to really explore all of this and give it meaning, make it make sense. You've got Pluto up in that ninth house also, helping you make sense out of life and finding new meaning, finding new belief systems, a new vision for your life, um, new purpose, new ways of exploring life. And certainly a new drive in that direction, a new drive for self-development. That's the ninth house as well. Self-growth, self-development, and especially in terms of either higher academic thinking or religious type thinking as well, philosophical type thinking. So Uranus is very helpful here as you had a glimpse of what it's like to feel different and change and move out in a different way through the world. But you're now getting this deeper insight that you can build on over the next 6 months. Your ruler, Mercury, is in the seventh house. That's what we call in exile or in detriment. It's not in a happy place because it's used to being in Gemini, where it's all about details and sort of so-called fact-based oriented thinking, where in Sagittarius it's very dispersed. And so here we have a Mercury retrograde that had just coincided with Mars. It was just conjunct Mars on the 12th, the day before I'm doing this video. And it's going to come back in from your seventh house into your sixth house. So your ruler is always important to track. So there's something maybe about partnership, business partners or life partners, or the way that you reach out into relationship that is part of this bigger story. If it is a business issue, there's definitely something that you want to kind of slow down on at this moment, because it may not be the thing that works out the way that you want it to be, because now we've got Saturn retrograde in your 10th house. The North Node keeps your focus there on in terms of your ambition and your social status and where you're headed, what are your career goals, and the way that you show up as an authority figure or with authority figures. So here with Saturn in a trine to Jupiter, Jupiter ruling your 7th house from the 2nd house of values and money, income, the things that support you. That's also even the way that you eat and things that you're eating. And there's a lot of emphasis on your health and all of that, especially as Uranus is now back in the 12th house. That 6th, 12th house axis can be where you realize that you're responsible for health issues that you might be grappling with. Not to say that you will be, that's the potential for some of you. But look at those different things that are showing up. How am I showing up in the dynamic of relationship? There's something that I'm learning that I need to unlearn, or I need to refine, or I need to come back at. So you can say to people, I'll get back to you. Pencil me in until the 29th of November, and I'll get back to you. And this will be when your ruler Mercury is stationing direct again, which happens to be at a really key moment because Saturn will also be stationing direct the day before. And so this has a lot to do with work for you, has a lot to do with where you take responsibility, how you're experiencing your growth, your personal growth. It may be that you grew too fast, or that something happened in such a way that you felt like you were compelled to take on all kinds of responsibilities and opportunities, but you then wonder, like, am I ready for this? Because with Uranus in your first house, it's going to change you a lot. And then with the Saturn Neptune North Node having been so long in your 10th house, so much activity this year in your 10th house of your career, reputation, your social status, your overall ambition, personal ambition. This might be a good time to really step back and take a breather and see, is there something I'm missing, or is this something I'm only realizing now I need to look at differently? Particularly so when Mercury goes back into Scorpio, and that's part of the bigger dynamic of your health, looking at your health. So again, by the 20th of November, Mercury will be back with the sun in Cazimi, and conjoined by the moon. So for that new moon, which will be a whole separate video, that's going to be very important for you. So you've got this week to really focus in on that, but you've got a very big extended period of time, the next 3, 4 months, even up to 6 months for Uranus, to really look at what needs to change. How can I sustain this growth? How can I sustain this money? Is it too much spending? Is it the income that I having to work? So am I trading hours for dollars or money for service? Or, is that physically sustainable? Is that mentally sustainable? This would be the things that I would explore for Gemini, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. The moon is squaring that Mars from your 4th house, so this can very much be a reflection at this particular moment in time about, is this making me happy? Is this working for me? Do I feel nurtured? Do I feel okay in my psychological, physiological, emotional self? Mercury also rules your 4th house, so a great time to reflect on all of those questions. And Chiron is squared by Jupiter, as they're now retrograding. So Eris and Chiron in your 11th house, showing you things that have been, needing to change in terms of your dream, hopes, wishes for the future, but also how you interact with society in general or social groups. And with Jupiter retrograding in your 2nd house, this may be an issue in a square to that. It might be an issue of your values. And that extends from what I was saying earlier about how much you're changing. So think of this as a big redo from the inside. Slow things down and take your time. And you're a mutable sign, so you have a lot of opportunity, lots of flexibility here for change. But sometimes with Gemini, things happen too much on the surface and too quickly. prematurely even. And so this would be a really important thing to go deep, slow it down, experience yourself physically. And these are the Artha houses, the second, sixth, and 10th. That is everything of earthly domain, including the body. Um, Go into what is deep and solid in the sense of self so that you can reach out without taking off and losing your grounding, which is a Gemini issue. And that also, speaking of Gemini things, it's part of the notion of Gemini is both and finding it difficult to make decisions. So this could be also a great opportunity to try and think and feel your way from the inside out into choices rather than jumping into choices. And that I think especially important to keep that in mind as the Mars Mercury may have you kind of jumping into things, jumping to conclusions, jumping into new things. Now, this hopefully is not too late because that happened yesterday, but it's been the story of the whole week. Don't commit to anything long term that is not already underway. Um, Again, there's a caveat to that depending on your natal chart, but just to say that you probably need a bit of time. When your ruler is retrograde, it's better to take the time that's necessary to reflect on things, look for red flags, look for the emotional tug that says, not really sure. And it needs to be a full body yes before you move in that new direction. All right. Good luck with that, Gemini. See you in the next video. So Cancer, because I have Cancer sun, moon and ascendant, we are very much a part of this moment in time with this dynamic of Jupiter retrograding now in the first house of self and identity. That is the way that we feel about what we're doing or how we're doing it or how we're feeling about life itself, how we're feeling about ourselves. And with this retrogradation, it's a great opportunity to reflect on that. Have I got capacity? Do I need support? Is there something I need to do differently? How can I show up and be more fully myself? Because initially, as Jupiter's come up to these 25 degrees, since only the 9th of June, there can be a lot of ideas and plans and expansion, but that have also been a bit problematic because the sense of we had a square between Jupiter in the first house and Saturn in the ninth house, and that was the Jupiter in the first house and Saturn just at the beginning of the 10th house, and that was in August. I think it was the 19th of August. And that may have been like a point where all this expansion and movement was stopped for a while. Not a bad thing because that gives one moment of time to pause. Now, this is another moment of time to pause and reflect on that whole period up to from the 17th of August. So basically, from that square time where there is this dynamic now that we're reviewing. What got missed? What had to be rushed through? What didn't get accomplished? What do I need to work towards? How do I need to prioritize things? How do I need to use my innate wisdom to work in the way that's most nurturing, most abundant, most financially beneficial, and create structures? Because here we're looking at Jupiter in the first with Saturn in the ninth house of your sense of purpose, and perhaps with access to something along the lines of your higher philosophy of life or faith or spiritual or other ways of finding your purpose. So this is to take your time over these next 4 months that Jupiter is retrograding, and especially over the next 3 months that Jupiter is basically holding or at least 2 months, where Jupiter's holding this trine to Saturn, and giving you this opportunity to look back on the last few months and see, okay, that I needed to set aside for this other thing that came up, and now I can come back to it. No time is lost. And then this Jupiter movement through your first house will continue from the 11th of March. So it's four months almost exactly, from the 11th of November to the 11th of March, back to 15 degrees. So if you have sun, moon, or ascendant, give or take 3 degrees on either side, so 12 through 18 degrees, but anywhere, let's say from 12 right through till 27, 28 degrees of Cancer. This will affect all of you. And this retrograde cycle. And then it finally comes out of retrograde from the 11th of March, and it sails through the last 15 degrees of your sign until the 30th of June when it moves into your second house. So a lot of what you're establishing here is your capacity for expanding in the second house area, which is earnings, money, possessions, sense of values and value that you give yourself. So a good time to really look deeply at how you create your systems. I will speak more about these things in the annuals. So if you want to get the annual reading, there'll be a lot more of this coming through, more detail that's going to establish the whole year of 2026 as a look ahead. So Uranus has also on the what was it, the 7th of November, Uranus backed up into your 11th house, which is your house of how you connect to society or to social groups and networks, how you connect to a kind of a sense of audience or fame or awareness, people are being aware of you, and how also you're connecting to your vision for the future. No doubt, for all Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, you will now be revising that vision. So much change is coming, even if things are working. And here's the pro tip, even when things are working, it's a good time to change. So don't be the don't hold on to something too long just because it seems to be working, because you're holding back from the next thing that can be better. So here with Uranus in the 11th house, you want to see how things have changed for you over the last 7 years, going forward to the 26th of April, where Uranus is going to finally move back into your 12th house. So you're going over things, kind of finalizing the whole of the last 7 years, but also especially so since March, roughly. And as you go through this period of time, you really want to ask yourself that question, how do I see my future? How do I interact with people in a way that is different and that feels more like me? And especially with Jupiter in your first house, that's going to feel much more comfortable than it may have felt up until even this summer or the middle of this year, for those of you who are not in the northern horizon hemisphere even. And so Uranus is also in a very interesting sextile to Neptune in your ninth house. Ninth house, Neptune, Saturn, and North Node, all ruled by this Jupiter in your first house. These are very favorable places. The first, the fifth, the ninth are lucky houses. They're the houses of Dharma, our purpose. And Dharma is the thing that we need to do overall in our life, but also the thing that we need to do now. And this is very much on the agenda for Cancer, is to really reflect on a deeper sense of purpose and meaning in so many ways. The fifth house referencing self-expression and how we reach out into our creative life, including children. Even for those of you who don't have children, it's something that you can consider the things that you create. That can be a literal artistic creation, or it can be a project that's more like a financial and entrepreneurial type creation. Teaching is also involved because we've got Jupiter in the first house. Jupiter is the guru, it's the teacher, the wise one. And the fifth house is students, and it's also what we have come into this life with. So that depends on your natal fifth house. It's the wisdom you carry through this life from another life. And it's also the wisdom that you're accumulating from this curiosity and this expansion into what makes you feel your self-expression. And then we have also the ninth house, which is very much about higher learning. And that's where we find Saturn, Neptune, again, with the reference to finding a sense of meaning and purpose that is lasting, that is going to be where you find strength and maybe even mastery. So you've got 3 months now to sort that out. But it's important in the long run, because this cycle is unique in time, and you saw that with the fixed stars. These are unique moments, not only astrologically, but in terms of also the integration of those fixed stars, emphasizing all of what I'm saying here in terms of the bigger changes going on. Your ruler, the moon, is in the third house. By the time you watch this, it will definitely be conjoining the south node several hours from now on the 13th of November. And that's a very interesting dynamic because there's something here in the third house of communication, of your willpower and choice and your connection to your everyday life that seems to need to be shed along with this. And it can also reference, so the moon is in its joy at this moment when it's in the third house. It can also reference the mind. So is the mind, it's the mind-body complex, but also the third house is the house of the mind, which is why the moon loves being there. And so that notion of the pattern of thinking, pattern of communication, pattern of even the emotional nature is something that's shifting in a very, very big way. And here we have a square from that moon. It was perfect when I started this. It was a perfected square to Mars, just perfected to Mercury, which is ruling it from the sixth house of your health, your everyday work, your work life, and my health has just been demolished by this mildew, this mold allergy that just flared up and kind of tainted the 10 days that I had in this course that I was doing. But this is also bringing that to awareness. So this is giving a solution or an improvement or a new way of looking at all of that. So this can also factor in on the level of health for some of you. If it's not health, then it's kind of like, how do I use my daily reserves? How do I use my energy reserves? How do I use my time? Can I be more selective, more directed with my time? One of the challenges of having Jupiter in the first house is, although it's exalted in Cancer, it's that there's a sense of, expanding so much, expanding in every direction. And that can include, in terms of busyness and investing yourself in all kinds of different things. And it's maybe an opportunity to reflect on where that is serving you and where it might not be. Here also Jupiter is squaring Chiron and Aries in the 10th house from the first house of self. The 10th house is your ambition, your career path, if you like, or your social status, your aims, your personal goals and aims, your reputation. And here that can also reference where it is that you feel like questioning your capacity, questioning your talents, questioning what's available to you, how you feel confident or in a lack of confidence around those different things. But it can also, over this period of time, show you how you can show up with that description. The Chiron gets you to look at all the things that need to be changed and the self-sabotage and the healing that is required, especially from the early childhood place of healing. And that allows you then to embody that. And then you become something that is, you are a reference, or you are somebody that has that capacity to show others the way. And especially as Jupiter is linking up from the first to the ninth house that it rules, this is also the potential for many people is to recognize, where can I show up? Where can I serve? Where can I guide? That's the ninth house. It's advising. It's like the power behind the throne. It's the counseling. And that's very, very strong. Maybe you want to work with the physical healing, or maybe it's about occult issues, or maybe it's literally astrology. The eighth and ninth houses are astrology. Um, and you've got Mercury, which is the planet of astrology as well. In modern astrology, they say Uranus is the planet of astrology. I stick with Mercury. That's the psychopomp, and I leave the outer planets to their own devices. It's not that that's not true. It's just that there is something more specific, more personal when we look at the seven traditional planets. So that might be the case for some of you. So, so learning more about your craft, learning more about how to connect with others around these topics. Um, Learning how to be comfortable in your own skin. That's the Jupiter in Cancer in the first house. Have I covered it all? I think I have spoken about all of these bigger shifts. I've already done a video on the Mercury retrograde cycle, which includes the Mars. So go watch that if you want to know more. I've also already done videos on the Saturn and Neptune dynamic, which I'll continue to talk about until February when they move out of that ninth house. So use this time to integrate, deepen your connection to yourself, deepen your sense of higher purpose. Why am I here? What am I wasting my time on? What am I, what is working, but it's done. This is also something to reflect on. As I mentioned with Uranus, reflecting on your future goals, reflecting on your future, reflecting on how you interact with groups and people, how you gain from what you do. That's the 11th house too. It's the house of gains. Um, it's a great time to reflect on all of those things. How can I move through this moment in time and refresh some of those things that I realize I am no longer embodying, no longer interested in that. All right, so much more to say, but I'd need to see your natal chart. Okay, Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Rising. Have a great couple of days. I'll see you in the next video coming up soon. Leo, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. Your ruler, the Sun, is in the fourth house where we find Lilith and Venus conjoined. So you're very much a part of this internalizing this emotional way of dealing with the experience of this lifetime, of this psychological, emotional nature. That's really, really important for you right now because you have a lot of the dynamics of November and December in your moksha houses, in the houses that refer to your freedom or liberation from the world outside, from the so-called worldly aspects of your life, and how do you feel about those things? How do you embody those things? How do you live through those things? So a lot of your role right now, Leo, is about digesting and processing what is going on the inside, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually for sure, because Jupiter is there in your 12th house. We've got Neptune, Saturn, North Node in your 8th house, which is very much about inherited patterns from family, what you receive also from intimate relationships or important relationships like client relationships. For example, how that might affect you financially, but also psychologically. And the fourth house is the home of your psychology and what makes you happy, what makes you feel secure, safe, etc. And this would be a really great opportunity to reflect on all of those dynamics. We find Uranus has just moved back into your 10th house on the 11th of November. And Uranus moving from your house of the future, where it was from July through 11th of November, is now moving back and questioning, is this the direction I want to take? Is this how I want to show up in the world? Is this the image I want to give? Is this the reputation I'm proud of or that others are seeing in me? What needs to change around that? There might be a dynamic around parenting. That's the 10th house as well. Becoming a parent or becoming a grandparent or some kind of role that is an authority figure, or there's a dynamic around all of those, around the authority figures in your life that can include a boss, for example, or that kind of dynamic. So all of that is changing. You might find that your career ambitions have been shifted now that Uranus has been in the 11th house and kind of getting a glimpse of a new future. And now you're looking back into how you show up in your career goals or your personal goals, your personal aims in this lifetime, the way you want to be remembered, the way you want to show up. And it's kind of like, no, I see things differently now. And that might be even really quite radically different compared to even the 7 years prior, where we've had Uranus going through Taurus all those years. So you might have been going through loads and loads of change, only to come to a place where you realize, no, this is it. This is the thing. So it can be that things change even from now until the end of April in ways that might surprise you. Another Uranian word. Neptune, Saturn have gone back into your 8th house, as I've said in other videos, and this is also an opportunity for you to really examine how you're feeling about connection with other people. That also applies to where your ruler, the Sun, is right now in the Scorpio season, and especially as Venus and Black Moon Lilith are there. Listen to the introduction for more on that. And then your ruler, Mars, has just met up with Mercury on the 12th of November, but all of this week, it's sorry, not your ruler, the ruler of your fourth house, Mars, has just met up with Mercury. And so all of this week has probably a lot of insight in terms of how you want to express what makes you feel secure or what makes you feel happy or what makes you feel creative. That fifth house is very important for you. It's trinal to you. It's one of the Dharma houses. So Mars and Mercury are giving you elements right now. That's part of the Mercury retrograde cycle for Leo, giving you elements about how to express my creativity. Is it about children? Mercury is also references children, and this can be something that there's something about having children or about the children you already have or about deciding one way or another about children that is a part of this cycle as well. It can be about an inspired project. So your fifth house is deeply inspiring. It's Sagittarius, deeply self-expressed. That's why Leo is Leo, and that energy is highlighted by the Mars transit here. Beware of jumping to conclusions. Beware of jumping into projects that you're not sure that you want to sustain. So that's the tricky part of having the Uranus back in the 10th house. You'll want to use this water energy of the fourth, eighth, and 12th houses, Cancer and Scorpio and Pisces energy to really dig deep and really say, is this the thing that I want? As you're going to have Saturn and Neptune in your ninth house, reconfiguring your sense of purpose overall, your life purpose. And so that is part of the dynamic that's being explored right now until February, and then again from end of April when Uranus goes back into your 11th house, that will make more sense then the more that you really dig deep and work on that. So beware of jumping into new projects or doing things in a way that feels rash. Use your creative energy for sure, but it's just not really the time to start something completely new. Or what you can do is produce behind the scenes, for example. Your ruler of your fifth house is in the 12th house, which is very much behind the scenes, and the eighth house also holds that kind of energy. I think that's pretty much it. Oh, and then the moon is squaring that from the second house to the fifth house. So there may be something here about values or a sense of what is important to you emotionally, or something that you're realizing about money, your possessions, or the things that you are feeling about those things. That is also potentially stopping you or making you frustrated or feel something needs to be done or changed based on what you want to, what output you want to create or generate. And again, if it's with reference to family and children, there will be some perhaps tension, but that's also part of this week's dynamic in many ways. But it will be sort of peaking in the middle of the week. And this moon aspect is very fleeting. It's only on the 13th. So if you're watching this later than the 13th, it's done. You can look back to the 13th and see what happened. Jupiter is squaring Chiron Eris from the 12th to the 9th, and that's an interesting dynamic in itself because there's something here about an inner awareness of self or your spiritual nature with reference to how you might feel you want to heal your relationship to God, to spirit, to what you believe in, what you have faith in, what you feel your sense of purpose is. Do I dare tell them what I want to do? Do I dare tell them I want to be I don't know, tarot card reader or something like that? This might be part of the bigger dynamic as well. And that is a fleeting moment. It lasts for a few days here, but it's significant that it happens around the time of the retrograde station for Jupiter. So give it a week on either side. So this week, last week, and the next week. I think we've covered our bases here, Leo, and I wish you well. I'll see you in the next video. And so for Virgo, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, we have a really interesting configuration with Jupiter in the house of its joy, in the 11th house for you, stationing retrograde in Cancer. And that's where it's exalted, but also it's the traditional house of the joy of Jupiter. So really interesting for opportunities, for an expanded sense of your vision for your future. of gains, for example. So things may have really been plugging along, things just growing, growing, going in a great direction. And then all of a sudden, there's this feeling of, okay, now I need to just sit back with this. I need to question that. It's not negative, it's just an opportunity that feels like I just need to integrate now. So you can continue to move forward, but it will probably feel like you're going either over old territory or that you're referring to something that has already been understood and you're now refining, let's say, or clarifying or digging down. This is also very important because Jupiter rules your seventh house of relationship, where you have the North Node, Saturn, and Neptune. So that theme of self and other has been just huge for you for a very, very long time. 3 years, almost 2.5 years, going on 3 years with Saturn, and 14 years with Neptune, and since the beginning of 2025 with the North Node. So a big moment in time for you to reflect on these notions of relationships. And Jupiter is supporting all of that with the sense of where am I going? What's my future holding here? And now with Uranus back in your ninth house from the 10th house of career and social standing and so on, back into the ninth house of your sense of higher purpose, um, your sense of like, why am I here? What is life all about? What do I believe in? What do I have faith in? What's my guiding ideology, for example? It's also the house of the father. I work with it that way, the parents in the 10th, the father in the ninth, mother in the fourth. And so there can be something there that you're realizing about all of those dynamics of yourself. Um, Venus is ruling that ninth house from the third house. So this is also for you with reference to a certain choice point. And this is also it's the karma houses of relating. That's the third, seventh, and 11th, and the houses of how we connect with people socially, where we find fun and pleasure, where we find, an outward expression. And yet, for Virgo, Sun, Moon, and Rising, those karma houses, those pleasure houses, are very personal. They're very deep because they're water houses. And so you feel things very, very deeply. And this can be an opportunity for you to realize, okay, I need to intuit my way to the next choice. I need to intuit my way to my sense of higher purpose with the insight that Uranus is bringing you. It's a great opportunity for you to revise anything that feels like, I'm not sure about this direction, or I'm not sure about this job, even if it's about a career, for example. Get clear and take these months, especially for Uranus up until the 26th of April. You can really get clear on why you do what you do, what motivates you, who you feel yourself to be. Certainly, as the South Node is going through your first house at this time, the moon just happens to be there as I'm doing this video, but the South Node going through this house of self, you're here throughout 2025 and the first half of 2026 to change some aspect of yourself, to have a sense of, okay, I'm letting go of this part of me that might be the part of you that is perhaps critical or demanding or perfectionist at your own expense, because it always is, even if it seems to be outwardly directed, it's at your own expense. And it's certainly at the expense of connection with others. And so this is what this whole moment is about, connection. How do I connect with others? How does that need to feel different? Am I connecting with the right people would be a question. This has something to do perhaps also with family. Third house is your extended family. Fourth house is the house of home and family and your lineage, your emotional, psychological self, etc. And that's where we find Mars and Mercury having just met on the 12th of November. Mercury is now your ruler. Mercury is retrograding back into your third house. So there is something here that's connected to your happiness, how you feel that happiness, what you need to feel happy. Any frustrations around your connection that is psychological or emotional to yourself or to others. Um, Home, property, literally, like where do I live? But also property in the sense of land, homeland even. Um, and so there's quite a lot going on in that aspect of yourself that's kind of buried. It's hidden from view. People will not necessarily know that so much is churning under the surface for you, Virgo. And so you're manifesting something that might require a bit of time out, that can help you if you just pull back a little bit. Um, that might be helpful with the Jupiter retrograding in the 11th. It's kind of like pulling back from taking on too many more things, or expanding your vision. For now, integrate what you've decided, and then the expansion will come, and the shift and the awareness, the certainty of it will come in 2026, especially after March. So so yeah, I mean, it's not negative. None of this is necessarily negative. It's just really checking in, let's say, with yourself, checking in with, who am I spending time with? And that's been a big part of the theme of 2025 anyway. Chiron and Eris are in your eighth house of intimacy. So that's been a long journey. Eris just is forever. It's just been for 100 years already. So anybody alive, basically, at this point, or mostly listening, will have Eris in Aries. And for Chiron, it's been since the spring or April, May of 2018. And that will have affected your intimacy, your sense of your emotional, psychological health, and your relationship to others in all kinds of different ways. Your capacity to receive is one really good way of looking at that. Can I receive? Virgo has a hard time receiving with Aries in the eighth. Um, that's why Virgo is doing for everybody else. And that square from Saturn back to Chiron is an opportunity for you to examine that. How is this relationship to intimacy, or to my happiness, or to my mental health, my emotional health, how is that impacting my future, or my connection to society, or my capacity to receive and be gainful? I mean, with Jupiter in the 11th, in its joy, in its exaltation in Cancer, this is the year to receive for you. So I wouldn't worry too much about the details, but definitely these are things to interiorize and reflect on. I think we've covered it now. I think that's it there. I think if you follow along for the cycle, the video that I did on the cycle of Mercury retrograde, for you as your ruler is Mercury, this would be a really important one to look at. And that was the previous upload from this one a couple of weeks ago. So, and also I'll be doing 2026 annual videos. So I will inform you about that when I upload my next video, and you can work your way through that throughout the year, which will be a continuation of this particular story, which is quite game changing. All right, Virgo, make the most of this, and I'll see you in the next video. So for Libra, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, this is a busy period of time for you in your social or work element. You've got Jupiter right at the top of your chart, and you've got Neptune, Saturn, and North Node in the sixth house. But now Jupiter is retrograde since the 11th of November. And so, with that energy of retrogradation, you're reflecting on how you show up out in the world, how you work, perhaps what degree of service or servitude you are experiencing, especially as the North and South Node are there in the sixth house, 12th house axis. That would be the question du jour for you, is like, where am I on the scale of service to servitude? And where is my comfort zone there? And then especially as Pluto is also in your house of self-expression, is that making me happy, would be the corollary to that. And then your ruler, Venus, is in your second house of money and trining that 10th house where Jupiter is. So there can be some really interesting dynamics around income, or expressing a desire for a raise, for example, if you're pay rise, or however you want to say it, depending on which side of the Atlantic you're on. And issues of values, how your values play into this moment in time. There's a lot going on in your second house in November. We'll come back to that when I do the new moon video, which will be in a couple of days. The new moon itself being on the 20th, and that's quite significant in and of itself, because Venus is going to be part of that bigger story. So there's a lot of fresh new things coming around your sense of income, property, what you value, your own self-worth, your relationship to possessions and valuables and things like that. So Mars, which rules that second house, is in the third house with Mercury. They've just conjoined on the 12th, but they're still really tightly in orb of conjunction all this week. And Mercury is moving backwards into your second house, and it will be part of that new moon configuration on the 20th. So definitely watch that video because that will have a lot to do with these financial issues. Second house is also family. So there may be a role that you're having to step into based on, your ruler Venus being in the second house, and then also the fact that Saturn, Neptune are in the sixth house of service, health, etc., your day-to-day role. And then Saturn is trining Jupiter in the 10th. That the 10th house can represent parents, for example, or parental responsibility, or it can be you with reference to your own parents, or it can be your role as a parent. And there's some need to step up in a way that's quite practical with Saturn in the sixth house. Um, we like the malefics in the sixth house, Saturn being your exaltation ruler, and so it's helpful. It's something that you're capable of dealing with. But it may feel like, especially as Venus is with Black Moon Lilith, and Black Moon Lilith is in your second house for a lot of this time, there may be something of a resentment or frustration around this whole dynamic at this moment. But it's good. It's whatever this moment is about for you. Think of this in terms of long-term forecasting, long-term planning with reference to your career ambitions or even your social ambitions, because Saturn, Neptune will move into your seventh house of relationship. That can be business partners, but also marriage partners, marriage type relationships, cohabiting, etc. And so there's something here. This would be the moment to kind of look and say, where are the red flags that I've been pretending are not there, especially as Uranus is in the eighth house, that's reflecting things that are deep, psychological, intuitive, secret information that might be revealed. This is also part of the scorpionic energy that will be part of this cycle currently. So you might be, again, it's a great opportunity. Think of it as an opportunity not to wish that things had been different, but to recognize, oh, wow, I'm seeing this now. Whether that's a red flag around a job that you're doing or around a relationship or around money, because the money axis is very strongly affected here, second and eighth house, with your ruler in it, in the second house. And so look out for things like that. What am I now seeing that I couldn't see before? And what am I ready to change? And that can include in terms of your interior experience, a psychological or emotional relationship to other people as well. Jupiter is squaring Chiron and Uranus, no, Chiron and Aries in the seventh. So there's something here in terms of healing the relational dynamics or your feeling of being accepted or being whole, being sufficient, let's say, in relationship, and how that's affecting your social status of all description. So social status meaning potentially your career status or your legacy or your reputation, or it can be also like, am I married? Am I divorced? Am I a parent? Am I single? No kids, whatever. So all of these things are requiring your attention right now. And when I say attention, not necessarily taking action on it, but actually digesting, integrating, and seeing, is this really a good fit? Is this working for me? There's something about the South Node and the moon here in your 12th house in a square. When I started this video, the moon was symbolically squaring Mercury, Mars, and that's an interesting dynamic because it's about intuiting your way forward to the choice point. Intuiting or understanding something about your deeper aspects of self that is important to understand for the thing that you're about to investigate or to grow into. And just as I finish up with Libra, my dog wants to go outside, so I'm going to just take a pause here, Libra, and I will see you in the next video. And for Scorpio, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, this is quite significant in this period of time because you're having now a lot of activity in your first house of self. Do listen to the beginning of this and then especially come back for the video that I'll do on the new moon in your sign on the 20th. A lot going on in your house of self, your sense of direction in this lifetime, and how you navigate your life. And now Uranus is back in your house of relationship. And so you've had 4 months since the 7th of July till the 7th of November, where Uranus was in your eighth house of intimacy and other people's money and how you connect to the occult or mysteries, cool stuff of life, or your own psyche, your own psychological nature, crises. Maybe there were some things that erupted in your life that were quite surprising, unexpected since July. And now with Uranus in the seventh house, there's a reference to the person across the table from you, your dynamic around relationship that is a journey of the past 7 years. So it's not a new energy for you. It's quite significant because you have been changed by the relationships that you've been in, and those relationship dynamics have been perhaps a little different, unusual, or unstable over the last 7+ years. And now you've got 6 months to go back over that. Is this working? What needs to change? What, how do I want to go forward in the dynamic of relationship? Just because Uranus is leaving your seventh house doesn't mean that that dynamic is done and complete. It's that you're reorienting yourself based on your relationships, and that can be business relationships as well. Also, particularly strongly indicated are well, business because of the fifth house of entrepreneurship, and your ruler Mars in the second house of money, having just met up with Mercury, which will come back to your house very soon. Mercury is retrograding back into your first house, and I've done a video on that, by the way. You can have a look for that one to hear more about that. But this seventh house where Uranus is, the fifth where Saturn, Neptune, and the North Node are, and the second house do correspond to a lot of issues around money or income or entrepreneurship. Your values also connecting to that, Mars in the second. Um, Also, children, issues around children, projects of all kinds, creative energy of all kinds. And that can just be simply around family dynamics. It's whether you have your own children or whether there's just this family thing going on that might involve even, somebody else in the family that has to be dealt with, and you need to step up with your ruler in the second house of what supports you. With Mars there, it's you that's doing the supporting, and so there's something to notice there. Could be around your values as well. Maybe the relational dynamic is like it's shifting so much that you're thinking, does this work for me now? Because the South Node is also in your 11th house, which references a change of vision that you have for this moment in time, or for for your life. Where am I going in my life? It's not the same as the ninth house life purpose where we find Jupiter. I'll get to that in a minute. It's more of a sense of what does the future hold, and what plans do I have for the future? Um, and who do I want to do that with? That's another big thing there. So definitely, this is an opportunity for you to be serious and to be honest with yourself around relationships. And this could be a great opportunity to work with all of this energy now in November. Probably for most of you, if you're a Scorpio sun, this will be for many of you part of your birthday orientation. But also, even if you're the moon or ascendant in Scorpio, this is really a big reorientation. And Venus there rules, Venus in your first house, she's in exile. She's in detriment in your first house. She belongs in your seventh house, which she rules. She's more comfortable there in the seventh house. So you're having to take on the mantle of the reason that you're in the relationship now. Venus in Scorpio can be a little bit manipulative. There can be an energy of trying to, especially because she's there with Black Moon Lilith. And that would be something to notice. Is there something that I'm doing that I'm trying to change the dynamic of my relationship based on my own personal fears or need for control or deeper desires? Certainly with Saturn, Neptune, North Node in your fifth house of love, there can be something to do with that. In terms of where this love relationship is going, or where the dynamic of self-expression or creativity is for me? Is there something I need to reconsider around that? That's part of the month of November, but going into February for that story. And then that's in a trine where Jupiter is in your ninth house. So the first, the fifth, and the ninth house, these are called the houses of dharma, the purpose, my why am I here? What do I do with my everyday life and why am I here? How do I express who I am in this lifetime? Would be another way of saying that. And also the sense of dharma has multiple layers of meaning. So it's not just like my life purpose, which is often in the West associated with a job. It's not that. Yeah, it's about the thing that calls you through. It's calling you in this lifetime, and it's calling you from within. There's a draw to something. And this would be a really strong moment to feel that. So you might require a little bit of downtime, or, that might be the Uranus in the seventh, where it's kind of like, I just need a moment of separate time. I need to be myself, with myself, by myself for a moment. Um, because the Uranus in the seventh can also cause a certain separation or distance in relationship. It will unsettle relationship dynamics till they feel more comfortable for you, till they feel more real. And it can be quite surprising. It can be an element of difference and shock and surprise. That's also Uranian, but it can be incredibly constructive as well. It seems like you're kind of in control of it at this particular juncture, simply because Venus, which is ruling Uranus at the moment, is in your first house. Um, I would say beware of jumping to conclusions and beware of just jumping in and taking action for action's sake. That's the Mars, your ruler in the second house, which can be in a fire sign like Sagittarius. It can really jump to, I need to do this now. There can be an impatience, and that can be something to sit with as well. Let yourself digest a little bit. Jupiter, which rules your fifth house of self-expression, as well as that second house of money and values, family, possessions, your self-worth, your own sense of value. That's up in the ninth house, and Jupiter does very well in the ninth house. It's exalted anyway in Cancer, and it's trine the Saturn in your fifth house. So whatever you're thinking about now, in terms of a longer term picture or a greater vision for you showing up more in your life, or more love, more fun, more children, more self like directed projects, whether they be creative ones or entrepreneurial ones. This is a really great time to reflect on that and work your way through what needs to change so that you can get that done. Chiron and Eris are squared by Jupiter in your ninth, so they're in the sixth house of your everyday. That's your work. It's your health, of course, physical health. It's your everyday life. Your kind of humdrum schlepping every day, doing this, doing that. It's the obligations and duties that you have, contracts and things that you need to uphold. And so there may be some things, again, that have felt a little bit wobbly, that you've been in doubt around. And that would have been quite a while because Chiron has already been there since about May, early May 2018. And now with the square from Jupiter that is just stationed in a square to that retrograde is really looking at the sense of higher vision for yourself, what you have faith in, a greater sense of purpose and meaning in what you do. And that would reflect back on where you might be sabotaging all of that, with the Chiron emphasis there on self-sabotage, on feelings of insecurity and inadequacy, or feelings of something I need to heal that is based on me, what I'm doing, and also how I'm feeling about myself. It can be very positive. I'm pointing out things that can be problematic only so that you can look at them and work your way through them over the next few months. But there's a huge amount of favoritism. All the water signs are favored at this time. So as you are a water sign, you're part of that story. I think the Mercury retrograde cycle will help you to understand a lot of what this means to you and how to deal with that in a very sort of here and now practical way. So again, you can look at that video that I've done, just the recent video I did on the Mercury retrograde cycle for that. And also tune in soon when I do a video on the new moon at the end of your sign that will also give you elements of how to work your way forward in the next few months. I think we've covered all of this, Scorpio. I think that's it for you now. Definitely, if you want to know more about the year to come, I'm in the middle of preparing these annual reports for 2026. I'm behind in that because you'll love this, Scorpio. I got a reaction to mold and mildew, this very scorpionic things that are hidden, lurking in the air, lurking in furniture, lurking in the walls. And it's only just now that I'm kind of finding my uh, normal headspace and energy to reemerge and do things. So I haven't been able to do the things that I had thought I would be done with very soon. But nonetheless, I will leave all of that, all those details in this video and the next video to come, so you can sign up for that and get the early bird price before the 1st of December when they emerge. I think we're there. I think we've done it there, Scorpio. All the best to you, and I will see you in the next video. Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. Your ruler Jupiter is retrograde now. That's a very interesting dynamic because it's something that reflects very personally on you at the same time as you have Mercury in your first house retrograding. So I think you're going back over some things that are very important to you. They're really deep. Jupiter is in a trine to Saturn, which is already plumbing the depths of your fourth house, of your experience of your intimate self, your what makes you feel secure, what makes you feel stable and grounded, what makes you happy. Um, and also it's connected to your lineage, your family, your ancestors as well. This is a dynamic where you can reveal or have revealed to you a lot about what you've been carrying that is ancestral, that is not yours, or that has been something from childhood, or that has been something um, that you are now aware of in a way that you feel, I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to do something about this. And that whole cycle of the Jupiter coming back through the next 10 degrees up till 15 degrees. So on the 11th of March, it stations direct at 15 degrees of the eighth house for you of Cancer. I think you could reveal a lot about what's going on that might be psychological, something you inherited from family patterns, family issues around family struggles and crises or secrets, intimacy in general, so emotional, psychological, sexual, obviously, as well. How is that changing for you? How are you learning through that? A lot is happening in your 12th house as well, and that continues really through the season, Scorpio season, and even beyond into December, even into your season, where there's going to be quite a lot going on. Just before the sun enters your first house, there's going to be a new moon in Scorpio with this Mercury that's currently with you, Kazimi, which is a big deal, and that's at the end of your 12th house. So think of all the stuff that you're thinking about right now with reference to you and how you're showing up and what you need to do. Um, by the way, trying to resist either blurting out stuff or jumping into stuff or jumping to conclusions. That's the Mercury Mars conjunction in your first house, Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, and Rising. uh, Before you get a little more information, get more into the energy of the new moon to see what needs to be done differently or see what revelations can come through that. And that brings that towards you then in your birthday season. So it can be a really interesting time for you to dig deep and sit with yourself, meditate. Certainly meditation would do you a world of good if you don't already, and also just even a sense of understanding the deeper workings of your psyche. Sorry, Scorpio, I made it all the way to you without coughing, but here we are. And Uranus has moved back into your sixth, speaking of coughing, has moved back into your sixth house of health, the everyday, your work, daily routines, obstacles, challenges, things that you may have been dealing with over the last 7 years that may have been health related, mental health, physical health, um, work related as well, like just all the stuff that needs to be taken on that will have been quite a a shakeup for you over the last 7 years, and now very much connected to, um, yeah, just connected now to your schedule, or how you want to change that, how you want to change your health, how you want to change the way you show up every day. So notions of martyring, victim dynamics, those kinds of things, any of that might be lurking there in terms of your work, how that shows up for you. This would be something that will be revealed to you now that you can clear. Equally, if you're in this kind of take this job and shove it mode, this would be the time over the next 6 months where you think, yeah, we're sure about this now. This is the thing. Just don't do it this week, unless you already know that, just because that Mars Mercury might have you dealing with things that way. And Mercury is ruling the South Node in your 10th house. So there's a lot changing anyway around your work life. We've already seen that all the way through 2025, your ambitions, your personal goals, your career goals, your relationship to family, especially your parents or your relationship as a parent. Jupiter from the 8th is squaring your 5th house of love and self-expression and children, your creative self. And that's squaring Chiron and Eris connected, which is part of the bigger story of the year and into 2026. And this is a very interesting dynamic because it's your ruler squaring Chiron and Eris, where there's something that you might realize is kind of a self-sabotaging way of interacting with the notion of love. There may be some feelings that you've been engaging in love relationships from a place of inferiority or inadequacy or a feeling of undeserving. If that's true, this would be something that you will absolutely reveal to yourself and be able to move through and heal. This is the Jupiter element that is facing the question, maybe really facing the question in a way that you can hear it. And then having this dynamic in your 5th house can be with reference to something going on in the lives of your children, if you have that. And there may be something that you can understand about that can be very helpful for them, but requires a bit of your time or a bit of effort. You've got your ruler Jupiter in a trine to Saturn from the 8th to the 4th. And so there's an immense support for long-term change around these dynamics that have to do with inherited patterns or emotional patterns, psychological patterns, relationship to your own emotional self, your psychological self, feeling more solid, feeling more capable. So this is a really great time for you to dig deep, as for all of us, but especially for you. That's your ruler. And make the changes based on this Uranus. Make those changes in your day-to-day experience of life that will reflect better health, better choices around work or the timing of things, how you use your schedule, and so on. Make those changes lasting and beneficial for you. So very, very good luck with all of this, Sagittarius, and I will see you in the next video where we look at that 12th house new moon, which is going to be immediately impacting you for your birth season. So something new to start there. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now. Capricorn, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. So Saturn, your ruler, is in the 3rd house and being very strongly trined by Jupiter, which is now retrograde in your 7th house. And that's part of this grand water trine that we've looked at already in different videos, which represents your 3rd, 7th, and 11th houses, all very much focused on people and exchanges with people and business exchanges, business partners, and dynamics that take you towards the future, take you towards what it is that you want to see in your life unfolding and with whom. And also with reference to gains as well, because the 11th house, which is part of that bigger trine, is also the house of gains. Mars, which is your exaltation ruler, is in the 12th house, just having conjoined Mercury. That was exact on the 12th. And Mercury is now retrograding from the 12th back to the 11th. So there may be something that you're realizing, information that was secret or that you weren't aware of, or things that are happening behind the scenes that are going to manifest more out in the world or out in the social sphere or with acquaintances or networks that you connect with, or in terms of your future vision, the sense of where am I going with this? What's the direction that I'm taking? As Saturn, your ruler, is in the 3rd house, there's definitely some sense of choice point. There's some willingness to go forward in a new direction that is, maybe based on something of a new role for you. As well, with the trine to Jupiter, this can be a new dynamic with your colleagues at work or with your neighbors or the neighborhood or just people that you relate to in a business sense. The third house is commercial exchanges, commerce, and obviously your neighbors as well. It's your everyday kind of people, your coffee buddies, um, your extended family, your cousins, siblings, aunts, uncles, and that kind of thing. That can be very much a part of this dynamic. And with Jupiter in the seventh, there's something really favorable about this dynamic. Even with it retrograding, there's something that you're revisiting, maybe deepening bonds, maybe deepening a sense of who should be with me walking this path, maybe deepening a sense of being ready to consult, because Jupiter would act as an advisor consultant, for example, in the seventh house, would be that dynamic with you or how you might consult with people. How are you playing that role for other people, but you need to revise something. You're integrating something and moving towards something better or maybe more sustainable. That notion of can this last? Does this have legs? That's the Jupiter trine Saturn. Both of them retrograde at this stage, but your ruler will be direct by the 28th of November, which will have you really moving forward with things then after that. Uranus has just moved back into your fifth house, and it has been in your sixth house, kind of testing you in terms of what it is that you want to do with your life every day. Um, it could be anything from do I want to retire to do I want to change jobs? Am I working myself to the bones? Am I um, whatever it is in terms of the obstacles that you've been confronting that may be health related, that may be related to a certain amount of overdoing things or not being, not feeling a little chaotic in your everyday life. Now coming back into the more familiar territory and trinal to your sense of self, we have Uranus in the fifth house, and that's also reflecting your children or relationship to children or love relationships, your creative output, your creative expression, having fun, looking at all of these different things. It's not a difficult place in any way, except that Uranus in the fifth can also represent a different dynamic between you and children, for example, or you and a lover. But it's not that. Like you've got Jupiter in your seventh and exaltation, and you've got your ruler trining that from the third. It's not necessarily bad stuff. It's just that these are going to change. Things are changing. Maybe you're changing your lovers. Maybe you're going to have lots of lovers. Enjoy the next 6 months then. But it can also be where you just realize, no, you know what? This used to make me happy. This used to be the thing I wanted to do. And now this is the thing that makes me happy. The third house, where we have the North Node, Saturn, and Neptune, is ruled by this Jupiter in the seventh. And you may also think, I'd like to use more of my creative self, my talents, my gifts. That's third house. The things that I do well, the things that I have skill in doing, and put them into maybe a more entrepreneurial setting. This could be where you decide, I'm no longer working for the man, I'm going to work for myself and do my own thing. Jupiter from the seventh is squaring Chiron and Eris in your fourth. So there may be something about a relationship dynamic that is challenging, that may be challenging your sense of emotional self or psychological self or security around those things. It can also be related specifically to home, house and home, maybe a desire to move, maybe a desire to move abroad because Mars is ruling your fourth house from the 12th house, and um, and it's your exaltation ruler. And then Jupiter is squaring that. Jupiter rules that Mars in the 12th. It's ruling the third house where your ruler is. Maybe it's the wife saying, "We got to move. I want to live in whatever, Tahiti." Um, or we got to get out of this neighborhood, or we need to downsize or upgrade, or whatever the thing would be. There can be something from childhood that is emerging from this moment in time because third house relates to your early childhood and, of course, your extended family and siblings and so on. But also, the fourth house references your lineage, your family, your parents, especially for me, the mother, but all the people you're descended from. So fourth house, 10th house is the parental axis. And since we have the South Node in the ninth, there may be something about the parents in general, whether it's the father or the mother, there's something big changing for both. And I say change because I haven't seen your natal chart, so I don't know what that means. So you'll know what that means. I think we've covered it all for Capricorn. Pluto, of course, is in your second house, and it's part of the bigger picture of change for you. But the choices that you make now in this moment in time will also be feeding into that Plutonian structure of power and change within the dynamic of your values and what you value and your possessions and the money that you have, and also your role within the family in a bigger sense. So change coming through family, coming through what supports you in a material sense, including, but also your values and your sense of self-worth. So this can also be a moment in time where you're really looking at that, looking at your values as a way to look towards the future that you want. I think that's it. So Capricorn, make the most of this, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, and I'll see you in the next video. Aquarius, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, you have a lot going on in your houses of what we call Artha, the earth houses related to work, related to money, related to your social status, related to the so-called worldly things of life, potentially related to health as well, but it's not necessarily negative. And this is where we find the grand water trine, but we also find that Jupiter has just stationed retrograde in your sixth house of health and everyday life and the things that you do. So you may be having a realization around the way that you show up every day, and that's something that you're wanting to change now. And just then, a couple of days before that, we had Uranus moving back from the fifth house in Gemini back into Taurus in your fourth house, where there's a bigger shift that can be a feeling of internal change, that can be psychological, emotional, a recognition finally of what makes me happy. And now I need to do something about that in terms of my everyday life and work and health habits and so on. And so there's a big shift coming for the next 6 months that is related to what you've already been experiencing. You'll hear that again in the introduction to this video, where I talk a lot about the bigger shifts over the past experience of this year and then the past 7 years with Uranus. And then there's a lot that's favorable here in terms of the place that you're hoping to get professionally or socially, or the way that you feel your personal goals are shaping up. Your ruler, Saturn, I work with the traditional rulers, so although Uranus is a modern ruler, I don't really consider that specifically for you, but if you want, that's your modern ruler in your fourth house, and your traditional ruler in the second house of family and values and self-worth and money and how you deal with possessions and stuff that you own. So there can be something here that's connected to a purchase, an investment, a desire to do something like that, and the way that you work through the trine to Jupiter from Saturn, your ruler, to Jupiter, the way that you work or the way you handle your money or the way you handle contracts and legal obligations, like a mortgage, for example, that would be there. That is all part of this dynamic. So there may be some shift in terms of housing that's you're going towards a new place or moving away from an old place that's downsizing, upsizing, whatever it might be, depends on your natal chart. And that's an interesting moment in time, because that can be related to a shift, a greater shift in terms of your values, that you're making changes to make yourself feel more secure, or that there might be something right now that feels like it's shaking up that sense of security, and that would require you paying some attention to those notions of how you manage your everyday life. The second, sixth, and 10th houses are those pragmatic houses that have to deal with what brings you stability in this world. And then there's a lot going on in your 10th house, and the Mercury that is retrograding currently in your 11th house, that was exactly conjoining Mars on the 12th of November, is moving back into your 10th house. And we'll talk more about that when I talk about the Mercury Cazimi, Mercury in the heart of the sun, at the new moon at the end of your 10th house that's happening on the 20th. I'll do a video in a couple of days over that one. Um, there's a Jupiter square from your sixth house to Chiron in the third house, and the Chiron is there with Eris. There's a really tight square between Jupiter and Eris, and a less tight square between Jupiter and Chiron. But this is an interesting dynamic because that is where Jupiter is stationing retrograde, and so there's something here that is significant. Aside from the trine to Saturn, there's the square that asks you to perhaps question your choices or question your way of interacting with people or question your way of expressing things, speaking, talking, contracting, engaging in exchanges of all kinds. There may be something that you feel has held you back. It might be about family, that your extended family or siblings or cousins has been something that you've had to grapple with and deal with. Perhaps an elder brother, particularly in this particular moment, since Mars rules that third and it's also in the house of the elder brother. Maybe you and the elder brother or an uncle have had a difficult situation emerge and that requires reconsideration around certain things. But this is coming with a flavor of doing something more self-sustaining or more supportive because Jupiter is ruling your second house from the sixth. So there kind of, if there is a health issue, that can also be something that you're recognizing how to deal with, what needs to be dealt with. And this is the process of the retrograde. Let's go back over these details. Let's go back over this stuff. Um, and especially if that's a mental health issue. And this is a great time for self-care, self-nurturance. It might be that you need to step back from certain things, and that might be part of the meaning of the Mercury retrograde in the 11th. It's like, well, I need to just step back from socializing for a little bit. I need to just reconsider what I thought I was going to rush ahead and deal with. Now I'm questioning that. I need to re-examine that. These are contractual type of energies, so contracts with people may be being reconsidered as well. And that can be an employment contract, it can be a housing contract, a rental agreement, this kind of thing. These are all those energies that are very strong at the moment. But it's working in your favor, and there's something that will change for the better once you got through this Jupiter retrograde cycle that will help you to understand something about how you do your everyday life that's going to bring you benefit, both financially, because it's ruling the second, but also in terms of how you see yourself going forward in time in the future. Jupiter rules your 11th house of your vision. So bring your vision into your everyday work, bring it into the thing that you do every day, and find a lot more benefit with that. All right, Aquarius, good luck with that, and I'll see you in the next video. And finally, for Pisces, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. And that includes me. I've got my Sun in Pisces and a bunch of other stuff. So we are having this really lovely grand water trine continuing, and now with a retrograde Jupiter, which rules Pisces. So very important when your ruler goes retrograde, it's very personal. So Jupiter rules Sagittarius and it also rules Pisces, the modern ruler being Neptune, which is in that sign. I don't tend to work with that. But the fact that it's also in your first house of self, sun, moon, and rising, the sense of self is very, very pronounced in this time. There's something that is long lasting that you're reflecting on in terms of your creative expression, your love relationships, your sense of self-expression that is important to you in the sense of bringing meaning into your life. Now, there's a lot going on also in your ninth house, which is also about purpose and meaning. And that's where we're going to have a new moon coming up on the 20th as well. I'll do another video about that that will really emphasize what I'm saying here. But because Jupiter is retrograde, there's a few months now, 4 months until the 11th of March, which will bring it to, for many Pisces, around the birthday time. What would be the 11th? The 11th would be something like up until about 20 degrees. Nope, not even. It's 15. So let's say 13 to 15, 13 till, yeah, 27 degrees of Pisces is really strongly concerned with this whole story of the whole retrograde cycle. And that's going to be a really interesting time because if you think about this as building up to the birthday, the Piscean birthday time, or even still, if it's just your sun, your ascendant or moon sign, or if you have other major planets in Pisces, then this is a great long-term vision period for you. While the planets are retrograding, you really go deep into what is the thing that I want to see happen. How do I want to create my future? Jupiter also rules your 10th house of your social status, your sense of personal ambition, the way people see you, your reputation, your career, um, your relationship to hierarchy or authority figures. And it's very, very positive. Things are shifting in a way that allows for a lot of potential. And that potential will thrive if you bring yourself right through it, that you come right from this place of, I own this, this is who I am, I take responsibility for myself. This is part of the North Node journey as well, where this has been the big story of 2025 and into the middle of 26. Um, the more you take responsibility for how you show up, the more you'll benefit from this. This is perhaps with reference to your children. Jupiter rules your 10th house of parenting and social status. So you might be, there's something about your children. Jupiter also refers to pregnancies and young children. It's the parenting aspect, meaning like the guru type of aspect or the expansion of family. And that's in the house of children. And it can also be children in the sense of projects, creative projects. Teaching as well is an aspect of this because Jupiter is the guru, the teacher in the fifth house of students and what we understand from another lifetime. This is the knowledge that we bring through. And that would depend on what you have in Cancer in this reference. And then, of course, the ninth house is very much with reference to teaching and learning and higher concepts and higher philosophies and higher meaning and so on. There's a lot of activity there right now that is kind of setting off this period of Jupiter retrograding through the fifth. So, how do I express my joy? How do I express my love? How do I express my creativity? How do I express my abundance, Jupiter? And also because Uranus is in the third house, retrograding back now into Taurus until the end of April. So for 6 months, till the 26th of April, Uranus is in the third house, and that's a commercial house as well. So issues of business and exchanges of all kinds of teaching and learning on a more sort of day-to-day practical level, or creative talents. That's also the third, second and third, combine those things, skills. And also the decisions or choices that you need to make in terms of where do I want to really put my mojo. This is also part of this dynamic as Jupiter, your ruler, retrogrades now in your fifth house. So it's just a brilliant energy for personal growth that's coming now through a reflection based on what has happened up until or since last August. So from August 17th, on the 19th of August, I think it was, we had a Saturn and Jupiter square, just as Jupiter was in the early, so Saturn was in the early, was it the 19th of August? Can that be? No, it was in the beginning of July. I think I said that wrong in the introduction. Okay, anyway, so the beginning of July, we had a square from Jupiter back to Saturn, and also then coming back to the what did I say? 17th of August. It's been a long video. That is also where we want to reflect back on what has changed and shifted in my life compared to now, and where am I going to go back to and review all of those things because it may be things that you started that didn't really fully engage, and now you're going to try and go back and figure out why, or do I want to fully engage? Is this a relationship or a creative project? Um, in my case, for example, my book basically got stalled. I still work on it little bit by little bit, but it basically got stalled due to a bunch of family situations that required me traveling as well, which is another ninth house Jupiterian type of energy. Um, and so now I'm picking that up. This is what I have to focus on now between now and March, where I'm really putting my energy into teaching, into finishing the book and to get it published, which is also a Jupiterian aspect. dissemination of information. So, are you working on something that got stalled or that needs reflection, needs editing, needs revision? And now you're going to be able to do that over these next few months. Is it a relational dynamic that you're wondering about? Is this working? Is this the right kind of relationship? And do we need to stabilize this in some way? So, these are really great energies for a vision of long-term stability. And part of that is the Saturn aspect, which is in your first house of self, and taking responsibility for your choices and making choices that are sustaining your projects and sustaining your vision. Um, the Uranus in the third house can have you also in a dynamic of change around your neighborhood or around your siblings or cousins or the local space or the way that you interact with people online or the way that you interact with people in your day to day. What else is a third house? It's again where we use our skills, our self-will to accomplish things. And so maybe you're realizing now my short-term goals need to look like this between now and the end of April. This is where I have to put my attention, and it's based on all of the knowledge that you've accumulated during this Uranus transit, which has put you where you are now in terms of where you feel you want to find a base and be more stable, find something more um, more fulfilling, more related to who you are. The third house is travel as well. So part of this dynamic, especially involving the Jupiter and the ninth house trine from the first, fifth, and ninth, it can be travel. It can be travel to learn, travel to teach. It can be an opportunity in this particular time to really look at ways of teaching or learning through engaging with people from abroad. That's also a part of this bigger dynamic, or people who are wanting to learn through different methodologies. Third house is internet or teaching of all kinds. It can be online, it can be practical guidance, for example. Um, And then this would be the opportunity to devise that. Now, if it's about children, perhaps you're interested now in having children. Maybe there's an issue here where you're already pregnant and now you're having to just take it easy or really focusing in on the pregnancy. Or maybe you're thinking, actually, I do want to get pregnant and have children. Or maybe you're thinking, actually, I'm done. I don't want any more children, or I don't want children full stop. And all of these things would be very much related to the Jupiter in the fifth in Cancer. Maybe it's about the lives of your children, and that can be something to do with your actual offspring or even grandchildren. Maybe your children are having children, that you're having a sense of that there's something that's expanding in the life of your child, and that's impacting you as well, or that you're just very happy about. It seems very positive. It seems very helpful and positive. Um, the second house is where we find Chiron and Aries, and Jupiter is squaring the second house from this station retrograde. And that's something to reflect about in terms of family obligations, how you fit into your family, and even notions of your value and your sense of self-worth with reference to actual valuables like money and possessions and stuff, but also how you relate to your own value. Um, how you relate to social values as well. And there may be something here where you're recognizing now, I'm feeling different about myself. I'm expressing all of that differently now. And with Jupiter in the fifth house, there can be, especially as it's the ruler of Pisces, there can be a certain amount of pushing the limits or extending into a little bit too much self-indulgence. And maybe now with the retrograde, you're recognizing with the square to Chiron and Eris, if I want to earn money or if I want to stabilize my income or if I want to invest better, I need to take this more seriously and be less either self-indulgent or frivolous. And the trine back to Saturn is really helpful for that. It's the square gives you pays the attention to the problem, makes you realize that you might be part of the problem. There may be an ambivalence around money, or there may be a sense of feeling undeserving. And now you're realizing, hold on a minute, I am deserving, for example. Second house is the family and your relationship to it and what supports how the family supports you, but it might be with the Chiron Eris there connecting and in this square to Jupiter that you're feeling you're the one that is now supporting the family, especially with Saturn in the first house. And this is something of a, a phase. This is not necessarily true unless you have that configuration in your natal chart. If you were born in the early 70s, for example, you'll have Chiron in the second house. You'll have Chiron in Aries. But otherwise, this is not specific to a lifetime. It's just this moment in time, maybe this period of November particularly, but also going into the cycle of Jupiter retrograding. Because they will square again. Jupiter, Chiron will square again in the direct phase. What have we missed? Have we done everything? We've got Mars and Mercury up at the top of your chart. Mars has just conjoined Mercury in your house of career. Mars rules that house of money, and that in middle of the week of this week on the Wednesday the 12th, Mars and Mercury were exactly conjoined. Now Mercury is backing off and moving back into your ninth house. And so you're contemplating something of how you're showing up in your career or your career goals or your desire for a particular reputation or an aim or a social status or expansion or whatever. And this would be a good time to really reflect on how stable that is. Mars can have you really driven, and that can be very helpful, except that a Mars in Sagittarius can be a little bit uh, like just overboard. It can jump in too quickly. Now with Mercury retrograding and also with Jupiter retrograde being the ruler of that 10th house, there's a really good opportunity for you to just say, okay, slow and steady. We have a vision. We're using that Sagittarian sense of purpose and vision rather than jumping in and just all guns blazing, do the thing. That will serve you really, really well in the long run. So you're preparing so much of what is coming in 2026 right now, but you are extremely favored. The first, fifth, and ninth houses are very fortunate houses. These are the lucky houses, the Dharma houses, the houses where you get a sense of this is me doing me. This is me showing my purpose. And that will be for an extended period of time now, until Jupiter moves into your sixth house of work as of the end of June next year and has you very busy. So establish your systems, establish the networks, establish the things that need to be the framework of what you want to do because it's going to be busy from the second half of 2026. The moon and south node are in the seventh, and as I indicated at the beginning of this video, at the time that I was clicking on it, there was a square from the moon to Mars and Mercury that perfected during the recording of the first part of the video. And that's very interesting. It's kind of like seeing the moment in time, although it doesn't apply. It's separating now, but even by the movement of the clock face through the signs. So it's a fleeting thing, but it's a relevant thing in the sense of like drawing a tarot card and giving a significance to the moment. And that might be that there's something about relationship dynamics or the dynamics of what you need to think about in terms of the other or clients and how you deal with clients, for example. That is also a part of this tension or the, let's say, changing direction, changing reflection in the Mars and Mercury conjunction, because the moon was squaring that Mars-Mercury conjunction, which is quite unusual. The moon squares lots of things lots of times, but the fact that it was at the Mars-Mercury conjunction is pretty significant. I think we've covered it all. I've said lots of things about the Mercury retrograde cycle in the previous video that I did. You'll find more information there. And I've also done a video on this grand water trine if you want to know more about that, because it goes on into December. It's a wonderful blessing of this moment in a cycle that prepares us for a lot of change going forward, and particularly strongly for the water signs. This will be the last period of time um, for a long time that there's so much water emphasis in terms of the elemental emphasis. And then we're moving into an era of much more fire and air. So we have to ground ourselves and nourish ourselves, fill our cup, as it were, to be able to go out in the fiery, airy elements of 2026 and 7 and beyond. All right. Good luck with all of this, Pisces, and I will see you in the next video. And thank you, anyone who's still here with me, and or maybe the Pisces who are still here with me. And I do appreciate you being here. And if you would like a 2026 video for your sign, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, I'm preparing them. I'm a bit late because I got quite ill from a reaction to mold in my journey to London. And I'm just recovering now, so I'm behind. I'm like literally about 10 days behind in my work. If you have sent me an email, I'm having catastrophic problems with my email. Only particularly my Apple email, the me.com address, and things just appear and then disappear, and I have no idea why. And then other emails appear and then they stay. So go figure. I'm going to have to reset my account, and I'll try and figure out how to do that later. This afternoon, I've been working on it for 4 days with no avail. So if you have been one of those people that's expecting an answer from me, please either connect with me through my website, which is linked below, or hold your horses and I will get back to you as soon as I can. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.